Got a great show planned, New Year's edition, 2024, end of year. I've got one of my probably person that I connected with the most, someone that I really enjoyed working with. His name's Eric Mancik. He's going to be on the show tonight. We're going to be talking a little bit with him. Signal officer, West Point. Had multiple people in his family go to Service Academy, so we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll just get to know Eric Mancik a little bit. So without further ado, let's bring on, some of the other guys, are out at other parties with the, having Happy New Year stuff. But, they may jump on, they may not. I know Scott's DJing a party. I know Matt and Al had stuff to do with the families for parties. So we're still going to make it do what it do. We're here with Eric Mancik, so let's bring him on. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Ty.
Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you.
It's normally like a more dynamic opening when I have the other guys because, we're kind of talking back and forth on each other, but doing it alone, I just had, wax poetic myself. So sorry if it was a little choppy.
Yeah. I'm glad we found the time to do it. I feel like I don't know why, but in some way it's appropriate. It's New Year's Eve.
Yeah, for sure. Like I was telling the guys, like, when we do get you on here, it's probably just going to be you and I talking anyway, because we usually finish each other's sentences when we were working. Deployed, we're always multitasking. Both of us multitasking and still being able to hold conversations. So, it's just fun. But, tell a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up, Eric?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Metro Detroit, specifically Harper Woods, east side of kind of 8 Mile 94, intersection type stuff around there. But like you kind of mentioned in the intro, different folks in the military over the years. So my dad he retired as a Detroit public school teacher, but prior to that, at one point, he had the typical recruiter lying to him type stuff. So he made a decision to drop out of college during Vietnam and enlist with the plan to be a helicopter pilot. Once he signed the paperwork and made it to boot camp, everything else, he found out, oh wait, he is 6 months shy of enough credits and stuff to actually qualify as a pilot. So he ended up being, just junior enlisted. He was a supply clerk, scrounger, those kinds of things. So we just, grew up over there. The whole family was, both sides of the family was over in Metro Detroit. My mother was a nurse, ER nurse for downtown, Detroit Receiving Hospital, Trauma Center. After being enlisted, though, my dad got out, ended up being a Detroit cop for a while, got hurt on the job, motorcycle training accident, not, shot or anything. And then decided to turn on the badge and gun and become a Detroit public school teacher, basically in the same neighborhood. So that was kind of where I grew up with. My grandfather, who died when I was fairly young, was actually enlisted in the Navy. And then lots of different folks in extended family, more kind of the grandparents' age and stuff. Were Marine, aviators and other things like that over the years. But for me, just start out with that. My older brother, like you mentioned, he went to the Naval Academy, but that's my fault. We were kids. He's about, 3.5, 4 years older than me. We were fighting. I was 6. He was about 10. We had a fire hydrant in front of the house. One thing led to another. I might have smashed his face into it. He might have swallowed a tooth, probably caused brain damage. So again, my fault that he decided he wanted to go to the academy. I got to live with that. But no, realistically, he and I ever since I can remember, basically wanted to join the military. I don't know if it was one too many G.I. Joes, saw one too many war movies, all the above. Could definitely say he saw Top Gun one too many times. He liked those dress whites. But as we were getting high school age and started getting a little more serious about it, my dad being enlisted, he never pushed it. It was never an expectation, anything like that. But he made one thing very clear, which was it's two different worlds. From what he saw in Vietnam, it's like, if I can do anything about it, I'm going to make sure both of you guys go in as officers. So my brother, being who he was shooting for the moon, the stars, sky, everything, and, put in for going into the Naval Academy. He got accepted. And then me not to be outdone by my big brother, kind of followed suit. But, it was always, if it didn't work out that way, I would have done RTC, something else. I was going military.
What is that process like, though, when you're like, he's what, 2 years ahead of you?
About 3.5.
Okay, so he's 3.5 years ahead of you. So he goes through the process of talking to his congressman or however he goes through it. Kind of explain that process. How did y'all both do that?
So that process it's painful, mainly because it's long. So you actually, unlike most college applications, you really need to start in your junior year. one thing I did that I, since learned that I got lucky on is I sent, an email or whatever. I mean, this was years ago, but I reached out to West Point when I was still like a freshman or sophomore, and they came back and said, "Hey, it's too early to do anything with you right now, but we have these this summer academic invitational, like kind of summer camp type thing." And I learned way after the fact that that was actually probably a very helpful thing for me, because again, they get a lot of applicants, but they don't have enough space for everybody. So it's already kind of a screening process, and not as many, apply to go to that as actually go to the academy. So the fact that I got accepted and I went there for their summer camp type stuff, apparently was in my file, and it was a plus in my column when I actually followed back up in my junior year to start the application process. But yeah, so with that one, honestly, it's a great school. I'm not going to say it's not. I mean, people see, the rankings, and the academies are always, top 10, whatever type stuff. It really is great education. But one of the things that also makes it, a little bit higher on that list that people might not always realize is there's the physical requirement. And so, you're going in to be in the Army. You're going to go be an officer, and the academy itself is always put to some extent like it probably should be. Just it's an aspirational thing for a lot of things. They want to make sure it stays kind of in that spot. So they're expecting like zero defects, for people coming in. So I actually had to get knee surgery in high school, playing football, and I had to get a medical waiver on top of that. So that was another giant pain in the butt, and hoops to jump through, and had to do a bunch of trips to docs to make sure, hey, is it going to be this thing that's going to hold me back forever and all that stuff. Thankfully, it was more just cartilage and meniscus getting shredded up a little bit than anything too major. But yeah, but you go through that, you've got to get a whole buttload of recommendations from your teachers, and they're looking at your transcripts and everything else. And for where I went, my high school had been sued at some point in the past over class rank. And West Point wants to know your official class rank as well. So because the school had been sued about it, because somebody got valedictorian and taken basket weaving instead of AP classes or whatever, and somebody's family got upset about it, they wouldn't do it anymore. Well, with my brother going to Naval Academy, it being a big deal for the school and stuff, they made an exception, but I had to promise to not let people know I did it and everything else. And I ended up in the bowels of the school somewhere in a room that I didn't know even existed, and was handed a sealed envelope and told, do not open this on school grounds.
I've heard so many stories from you, and I've never heard this story. So that's really cool.
Oh yeah, people.
So I can imagine you in the bowels of school in Grosse Pointe, Michigan or something.
Yeah, because at the same time, if you couldn't get your class rank from the school, you'd be put up against kind of like the national average. And so, for a lot of folks, it's probably gonna be more beneficial if you're going against your own school population than the national average type stuff. So yes, I got lucky that they were willing to do that. Yeah, so you go through the whole thing. You start junior year, and all this different stuff. You got the recommendations, the rankings. You still got to have your SAT, ACT scores, all that stuff. But like you mentioned, there's also the congressional nomination, and for that one, you can get it from multiple folks. One is actually all the way from the president or vice president. I mean, those obviously are few and far between. But the more realistic ones that people get them from is either your senator, one of your two senators from your state, or your congressman for your congressional district. And so everybody has a slightly different process, but it's generally the same thing. And it's almost the exact same except for the medical piece of the application process for the academy itself. So again, you're writing essays and all this other stuff, multiple times to get through. You got to go through interviews. I ended up getting mine from Senator Carl Levin at the time. And ironically, the senator for the state, well, not state senator, but, U.S. Senate, his application and screening process was less intensive than my congressman's. That one was comical because, I remember getting in the room for, the final interviews, and there was a panel of like 4 people in front of me and several people sitting behind me. And I'm just trying to, say hi and acknowledge people in the room. I went to turn around to, say hi to them. And then somebody quickly went, "Don't turn around." Like, don't look at them. They're, just ignore them. It's just like the weirdest, overly intense application process that I can remember of any of them. As a counterpoint to that, the one for, Senator Levin, Never actually interviewed with him or the congressman, but with the staff. And for that one, showed up to one of his offices or whatever, go in, and there was just two guys, way more laid back than the other stuff. But one of them was Air Force Academy grad, the other was Naval Academy grad. So yes, but as soon as I walk in, they started giving me a hard time because they know where I've applied for, they know where I've asked for a nomination from, and so I started an application. I think it was with the Air Force Academy, but then I revoked it. And then I didn't even start one for the Naval Academy, and maybe vice versa, but I think that's what it was because I don't like boats. I'll be out in the ocean, but you go back to, what is it, USS Indianapolis, the one that delivered the bomb in World War II, that was radio silent coming back and sank. Well, if you're out in the Navy, out in the middle of the ocean, the boat sinks, you're screwed. If you're in the Army and your base gets overrun, you just go somewhere else. Kind of like that option a little bit better. But anyway, so these guys are giving me a hard time for it. And one of them's like, oh, I see how it is. Like, Air Force Academy's, not good enough for you. You applied and, revoked it. And then the Naval Academy guy was like, oh, yeah, really? Well, he didn't even apply to us. We weren't good enough. And so in my head, I just remember distinctly mentally going, well, I'm screwed. And when, all right, screw it. And I just started giving them flack right back. And it turned out to be a really fun just conversation. I don't remember how long it was, say, 30 minutes, whatever. I ended up getting the nomination, but I walked out thinking, yep, I'm screwed. That's not happening. I was definitely not as professional and everything else I should be. Apparently I made a good impression, things like that. And nobody got, personally in this stuff. It was just the usual kind of military, ribbing that we always, give to others, services and stuff. But.
And how old were you when this happened? You were in college or not in college, but
yeah, I was probably 17, maybe
17 years old.
Yeah.
Scared out of your mind.
Oh yeah, it was because my parents didn't go with me. I mean, I just drove to the address and went in, and I was, kind of sport coat and tie or whatever type stuff, and just, yep. All of a sudden, I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to work. Yeah, so it lucked out. It did, but yeah. So that one, with the process, you actually, for anybody that is going to do it, it really behooves them to apply kind of early and then really try to complete all the pieces of the application aggressively, because what people don't realize is in the the admissions office, the head of the admissions department, they're the ones that sets the requirement for, hey, because you don't actually have to complete the entire application, everything else, to get a basically an acceptance letter, but it's like contingent upon, I'm sure if I've got the one that they sent me somewhere, but it's contingent upon you finishing the application and getting the nomination and everything else. But say you've put in all your essays, you put in the transcripts, you put in standardized tests that are good enough, and you've got the letters of recommendation, that guy could come in or woman and say, hey, today anybody that's got these things already completed, they're in. The next day he could have woken up in a bad mood and then come and say, you know what, now they need to have everything. And so if you were that day that you were up, hit that threshold, you got that, letter of acceptance type stuff. So that was, pretty sweet. But yeah, I remember my dad showing up after football practice because I'd gotten something from West Point, and all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, what's going on? And he, pulls it out, and right there in the parking lot, found out as long as I got the nomination and finished the rest of the application, I was going to West Point.
So you're a high school football player, post knee surgery, had to get a medical evaluation to okay that to enter the service. Your brother's already entered the service in the Naval Academy. You're going to go to the United States Military Academy. And what was it like for you when you first got to West Point? Oh, by the way, Matt Johnson, Navy Senior Chief, the main moderator for the podcast is on. Matt Johnson, this is Eric Mancik. He is probably one of my closest friends that I ever had in the military. We mind melded, for a lot of the deployments. So it was a lot of fun working with him. But what you been up to, Matt?
Cheesecake and New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I hear you. My wife bought me she brought me one home.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say it's good to have some adult supervision, but you are, Navy, so I don't know if that qualifies.
It doesn't work ever. You said your brother went to Annapolis, so you already know. Supervision not required recommended, but doesn't work.
Very true. So first day at West Point, what's it like,
So
Eric?
mine was atypical. So because of the knee surgery, when you show up, you still have to go through another like final medical evaluation to make sure everything's like it should be. And so you go through, and I mean, it's what you kind of expect. So part of it starts out normal. You show up early morning. They've got their big kind of concert, main auditorium and hall that can sit the entire academy at once. And you walk in, kind of take small groups at a time, and your family's with you. You got a small duffel bag because again, they're going to issue everything. Other than what you got on your back, you don't really need much other than some toiletries. And when you get into that auditorium, they literally flat out say, like, you now have 60 seconds to say your goodbyes. And they're not kidding. And so, you do final hugs and all that stuff. And then you're ushered out, backstage, and it starts. And so, you get back there and they're giving you your, duffel bag. And then you got to put your name on it, with the tag. And you walk up to the table and they've got the tags stacked, just so, pens, same thing. The pens were arranged in like a triangle. And they start barking at you, just like, boot camp, other stuff, for doing stuff. And obviously they're telling you explicitly exactly what you need to do, but they're screaming at you, or rather they're speaking in a voice loud enough to make sure everybody can clearly hear you. And you're freaking out, what's going on. And so when you're done and they're telling you got to put everything back the way you found it. And of course, if your triangle was like this, but now it's like this, it's wrong. And so they're still screaming at you and you're getting rushed through everything. The whole day is, just kind of getting your initial, issuing the stuff. You get the haircut, whole 9 yards for those things. But at one point I got pulled out.
You might have just changed the whole world doing that right there. Doing those Naruto signs, man. You made it in some signal shit and you done changed the whole algorithm for TikTok or something.
Who knows? Maybe.
The signal powers are very strong with you.
Yeah, as long as I get my cut, we're good. Because these days I'm in it for the money. You don't join the military for the money then. But but I got pulled out to get checked out by the docs. And one of the things I missed is one of the most kind of traditional like things that happens is at one point you've got to report to the cadet in the red sash. And so it's a senior cadet, and it's the walk up to my line, not over my line, not on my line, not behind my line, type stuff. And you've been told exactly what to say as report, and unless you get it right, you keep going, you keep cycling through. And so I missed that whole thing because I was sitting waiting to get my knee checked out. And then the day culminates with a final like mini parade for the parents. And one of the things that's different than the Naval Academy for West Point is at the Naval Academy, they do same kind of concept, but they give you a minute to go see your parents. And the funny thing is, if you don't come, I think I remember, again, I was younger, but if you basically didn't go back into formation when they said the time was, like, fine, you're out, see you, go home with your parents. You didn't get that option with West Point. They just march you by, and if you can see your parents out of the corner of your eye, great. Otherwise, then they march you right back in, and that's it. So for me, it was.
So they're locking you down early.
Yep.
And that's the part right there where Shane Gillis tapped out when he went to the academy, right? Like he's like, "No, I ain't get back in formation." Like, you don't know what I'm talking about, do you?
Yeah, the comedian Shane Gillis. He went to the Naval Academy, right?
Right. Well, no, I think he went to West Point.
West Point,
but he tapped
he just
out
clearly
sometime.
said they don't allow you to get out of formation.
Well, he tapped out at some point.
Yeah, I mean, you can tap out if you want. I mean, it's volunteer. So someone you just want to quit, you're done. Take it aside, make sure you're serious about it, and then you're done. But yeah, I mean,
were your 4 years at West Point enjoyable? Like overall, I don't want you to go into like every single thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, so in general, yes, I would say. I mean, but at the same time, it's a service academy. And one of the things for me is, I think we talked about it, but the reason I went signal was because I hurt my back, and I actually hurt my back at the academy. I was trying to, lift a bunch of stuff and, lifted just my back, not my knees type crap. And I will have to say this one because I think it was a Navy doc that was just there on rotation, whatever, at the academy. He kind of helped me keep it quiet because if you get permanently injured, again, you might not commission. You could theoretically graduate, but if you're early enough on, they'd rather have you transfer. So I had to, basically hide the fact that my back was not good.
So they wanted to put you in the portal because you hurt your back? Man, that's fucked up.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had a little bird whisper to me because I was on profile for quite a few PT tests. And I had a little bird whisper to me that if my next PT test wasn't a full 3-event PT test and I passed, I was gone.
Oh,
so
wow.
I gutted it out, did my sit-ups, all that stuff.
Suck it up.
Yeah, I did it. What sucked was my sit-ups was the best event. I got 100 plus every time. And then I hurt my back and that went out the window.
So would you do like 95?
Yeah, something like that.
He was still
that sucked. But yeah, so I gutted that one out. So that definitely made it really shitty because I remember, I get a lot of crap because you get your class ranks combination of your military grade, your academic grade, and your physical grade. So my physical grade, put me kind of middle of the road for the my class rank. But yeah, no, so that one sucked. But because with that, then I had to go like, extra PT and everything else just because to try to like make it better. But then once people realized like I wasn't faking, and 2, I wasn't using it to get out of stuff. I remember one of the guys, he was like the top ranking PT score in our class. I was working out with him, extra in the morning. And he actually said he was surprised because he figured I was just gonna, basically just try to cop out and, drag, not really put in the effort. And he's like, no, you don't quit. Like, no, like I'm hurt. Like, it's not like I'm just trying to get out of PT or something.
So here's the important question though. Out of the 4 years you were at West Point, how many times did you guys beat the Navy?
Of course you'd ask that question.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
All 4 years.
That's victory right there, dude.
I will say though, one of my favorite things is when I was a plebe, my, firstie brother at the Naval Academy, who had this girlfriend he was just madly in love with, who's now married to, he couldn't get enough tickets for the Army Navy game for her whole family to come. He calls lowly little plebe, West Point cadet brother, and I asked him, how many do you need? He's like, well, he'd tell me, it's like, dude, how many do you need? Just tell me the number. Yeah, I called him back the next day, said I got him. Like, what? How'd you do that? Because every cadet, you only get so many because there's only so much space, and they want to, sell them and things like that. I was like, don't worry about it. But you're sitting on the Army side. So to this day, though, I can at least hold that over my brother's head.
Worth it. They're married now, dude. It was worth it. He's like, you sacrificed a lot for me to go to that football game.
Yeah. So no, but it was fun though, because yeah, but with my parents having one at each place for a while, my dad would always wear one hat for the first half, the other half the second half. My mother thought it was hilarious. She'd always, whenever she was visiting us, she would purposely wear the other school's stuff, and it was hilarious because people would be like, muttering, does she not know where she's at? Really, she thinks she's that stupid that she doesn't realize that she's wearing Naval Academy stuff at West Point, or West Point stuff at Naval Academy. Yes, because
she's like, I bought this in the store, like right over here on campus. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
it's for sale right over there.
Yeah, I've heard so many stories about how badass your mom is. So.
Oh yeah, she's still to this day probably the only person I'm physically afraid of.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
She stopped wearing them, I think, but she had these acrylic nails that I swear probably could have tore through an Abrams. I still think she might be able to levitate. I don't know, but yeah.
All right, so you finish up West Point, and you're getting ready to go to your first active duty unit. Where is that, and what are you feeling at that point?
So a little bit like a dumbass, but also didn't really care, because when you're picking your branch and then you pick your duty assignment within just the branch. My best friend at the academy went to Hood, and the guy that was right behind me in order, whispers like, dude, it's the last spot to Hood, and you're probably going to take it, but is there anything I can do to get you to let me take it? And so I got to, just quickly tell us when my buddy was pissed at me because I looked at him, I was like, buy me a beer, call it good. So I gave up my spot to go to Hood instead. I picked Fort Riley, Kansas. And so my buddy was pissed. To this day, he still gives me a hard time about that. But hey, it was good beer. But yeah, so get done with that. And
was
then,
it Yingling?
Yes, it was.
Okay, good. Okay.
And it was a pitcher. I mean, to me, it still counted as one. But going to the first duty station, coming out of the academy, just at the time, they'd introduced the whole like BOLIC concept type stuff. I don't know if they still have it, but it was like basic officer leader course, whatever type stuff. And so before you go to the signal, officer basic, you do this kind of additional rudimentary like boot camp type stuff. So I did that one at Benning, and then from there did stuff at Augusta, Fort Gordon, or whatever it's called now.
Good name.
Yeah, and ended up getting my orders changed for still going to Riley, but changed last minute. I don't remember what unit I was supposed to go to, but all of a sudden I get in touch the deputy G6 for First Infantry Division. You know, I get contacted by her. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And she basically telling me like, hey, yeah, we have to change some stuff. So when you get here, you're going to be coming to basically the G6 staff, like as a second lieutenant. Okay. And found out what it was is this dude, they had just gotten the new division headquarters, and some other, stupid lieutenant had pissed off one of the brigade commanders by inadvertently insulting the guy's wife or something like that. And when they're doing an official tour, and the guy was like, I want that dude in my unit tomorrow. And so I was supposed to apparently go to that brigade, and they flipped us. And so it was a little drug deal type stuff. So yeah, I'm showing up, just definitely no idea what to expect, because all of a sudden I was thinking, hey, I'm going to be signal company or whatever, and next thing I know, I'm the assistant to the assistant of the nothing in the deputy G6 office.
Good place for a second lieutenant signal officer to start.
Oh yeah, you learn so much. I think I might as well have been officially titled as an interior decorator. I literally got assigned to work with the post historian and museum to figure out the artwork that they wanted to display that would tell the history of the first ID, starting from the beginning, the first floor in the lobby, and wrapping all the way up, going to the third floor, ending at you go into the general's office.
I mean, I think that stuff's greatly important. I think it's wonderful, but I believe that seasoned, like senior NCOs and field grade and company grade officers should be doing that stuff, but second lieutenants should be out there laying wire. But okay, go on with your story.
Oh no, but it was just kind of ridiculous. So I was there. I did that for like 2-3 months, and then basically a request came down for a unit to get a battalion S6, and with I don't even know why, because I mean that's definitely again freaking second lieutenant. But what I was confirmed is basically with the way the queues were for platoon leaders, then going to company command, everything else. The deputy G6, she told me like, you're not going to get one of those before you become captain. Like we're full up on and all this stuff. So this is really the best way to get you out of this office and into kind of just regular army type stuff. So I'm like, okay. And she says, you're a smart guy, you'll figure it out. I should have heard those words and like run. But I was like, oh no, yes, ma'am. Yeah, I'm really excited. So all of a sudden I get put through, you just, basically rapid, mobilization, type training, whatever, in less than 2 weeks. My apartment's packed up, and I'm getting on a plane to go to Afghanistan to join up with a unit that's already been downrange for a little while, to basically start acting as like their S6 as a second lieutenant that knows this much. So
how much did you know?
About this much.
This much.
So what was that like walking in the door? You get there, you walk in the door, you know nothing, but now you have to be in charge. How did you handle it?
Oh, well, even before then, I got into country, and landing at Bagram, they had a little supply element, for people going in and out of basically the theater for R&R, and they had one of our logistics or patrols or somebody, because it was a combat engineer battalion, ironically as well, 70th Engineers, and they picked me up, and as we're starting to roll out of the gate, the platoon sergeant looks at me and goes like, hey, how do I do, whatever on, this stuff? And I was like, I don't know. So yeah, because that one, and then as we're heading back to the FOB, one of the trailers had an issue, and we had to, stop and try to repair it. And of course, stopping traffic both directions. And so within a couple hours of landing in theater, I'm out helping to pull security, because I'm just, getting so wet behind the ears, it's not even funny. And we've got pissed off locals piling up on both sides, and you're just waiting, just like everybody else is like, yeah, this is bad. This is probably bad. So just praying that nothing happened, because at the same time, the supply clerk who gave me my weapon when I landed gave me like full on M16 musket that when he went to rack it to make sure it was clear, it was like, I'm like, okay, so clearly you maintain this. I had to force him to give me a cleaning kit, type stuff. So yeah, I was like, yeah, this is bad. So thankfully nothing happened. But yeah, walking in.
No left seat ride, right seat ride, just get in
Well,
there.
I didn't find out until I got to the unit. Their actual S6 was still there.
Right.
So it was just weird dynamic with stuff, and him and his NCOIC hated each other, and it was the most dysfunctional shop that I can remember, like, ever being around. Obviously, they got the job done, but to some extent they were fortunate because at that point this was, beginning of 2000, early in the year 2008. So I mean, they fell in on established fobs and everything else, so they didn't really have to do too much and stuff. But yeah, it was rather interesting. But and then the battalion commander used me as an excuse to basically go cab hunting. So he's like, "Oh, you need to get out and see everything." So he just snatched me up when all of a sudden I'm being his excuse to just start driving around, which is cool. I mean, got outside the wire and started seeing stuff, got to see the other units, and got exposed to a lot more stuff. But it was just like, what is going on? But no, it was, yeah. So I got a chance to try to do some stuff. We actually had to upgrade the fiber ring on the fob we were at, Oregon E. It was, I mean, everybody's seen on the giant rat's nest of cables going into the main type stuff, and that's exactly what this place had. We got cable dogs out there, and they tested the fiber, and they're like, "Holy crap! I cannot believe that you guys are actually able to do anything on this network." It was that bad. So, yeah, I had to get, we had to dig the trenches, put in the manholes, whole 9 yards. I do remember us dealing with basically an SF type compound that was on the fob. The guys were jackasses. Well, the first team wasn't. The first team that was there, they were cool. And then just as usual, they swap out middle of the night, not telling you. Next guys came in, stinking of, 3-letter agency type stuff. The previous team, I'm pretty positive, was, Green Berets. And, we're in the middle of also trying to tap them into the network. And so we had to be on their compound. And they treated my team like shit. And again, me being the dumbass that I was like, all right, screw it. We're not going back over there. I'm like, well, I was like, no, we're not going to go finish it. They're going to treat you guys like that crap. We were doing this as a favor to the previous team. And so I actually made one of their guys come over and apologize before we finished the work. Surprised he didn't wake up dead, but at the same time, why not?
No, you got to be able to communicate. So you're going to go ahead and go over there and give that apology and ask nicely for them to come back over.
Yeah. No, honestly, it's just like, you don't need to be a jackass. It was a dude that was always wearing like black wife beaters and like the tiger stripe, camel pants. It was one of those like, dude, all right, put down the steroids. And
Steven Seagal arriving.
Oh yeah, it was ridiculous. But like I said, the previous team was awesome. But, yeah, so I mean, that deployment wasn't the longest. Definitely.
How long did you stay over with 70th?
It was, I think, just a shy under 6 months. The whole team was on a 15-month deployment. I remember one thing that stood out was going with one of the platoons, and it was like midnight chow, the DFAC, and we're in line, just gotten off patrol, hitting it before, the DFAC was going to shut down for midnight chow, and listening to some freaking, I think probably Air Force guys, complaining about, being there and this, that, the other. And the guys I was with, all of them had been in theater for more than 12 months. And we still had more time to go. And I just tapped these guys on the shoulder that were in front of us. It was like, you need to shut up. Like, well, I was like, have a little bit of situation awareness. You need to shut up. Like, how long is your deployment? Like, 3 months. I was like, okay, great. These guys have been here for more than 12, and you're pissing and whining about yours. You can shut up.
Right.
Like, or they're going to kill you. Your choice. But
yeah, but they're like, but my situation is my situation.
True.
Yeah, so people don't, but the guys that were there for 12 months or more probably weren't not walking around and complaining every day, right? So you just don't know. So these guys at 3 months that are complaining, the guys at 12 were coming in like, can you believe these motherfuckers around here complaining, talking shit? Do they know what we've been here doing? And then the answer is always, no, they don't, because you didn't tell them. You just watch them complain and walk by. Make sure they know who you are and like how long you've been here, right? It's just one of those things.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, because they were in PTs, perfectly clean, and our guys were in. I mean, yeah, it was some ratty, fatigues and everything else. But yeah, so anyways, that deployment was interesting. So I definitely learned a few things interesting, kind of hard ways, but
in a good way though, right? So then after you learn all that stuff while deployed with the 70th, engineer battalion, then what kind of happens that kind of throws another monkey wrench in your whole life?
Yeah. So with that one, the real reason I was brought into that unit the way it was, one, the dynamic, I think, with the S6 shop, but the other one on top of that was they were doing a unit move. And so officially they were going to then be deactivating the 70th Engineers and moving the battalion and its equipment and everything else down to White Sands Missile Range, New Mexico, and then activating or reactivating the 2nd Engineer Battalion. I don't know if you guys mentioned in previous podcasts, but the 2nd Engineers had only ever been, since the Korean War existed in Korea. And so they, deactivated the unit, rolled up the colors there. This is the first time the 2nd Engineers had been a unit on U.S. soil since, and mine is behind the Christmas tree.
Nice.
But yeah, so 2E.
That's right.
But with that one, I showed up and I was the S. I wasn't the S6, I was the S. When I got there, I think I was the second, I was the third person to sign into the unit. It was a first sergeant, a supply clerk, and me. And that first sergeant, that was the only time I had seen him smile. The entire time I knew him was when I showed up. He's like, I have an officer here. I'm no longer the senior person.
Right.
So
I want to curse at everybody. I can't do that if I'm in charge.
Right.
Can't.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, the Battalion XO signed in within like another day or two, and so he was doing the XO S3 stuff, and I had S1, S2, S4, S6. It was interesting. The scary thing was, fast forward a couple years later, and I found out they were still using one of the original spreadsheets that I made for the S1 shop. So that might have been why some of our personnel stuff was jacked up at 2E for a while. But at the same time, like, you guys should not be using that tracker. I made this. And I
Signal guy, not supply. So, or admin, don't take that for gold. You might want to use your knowledge of your EMOS and fix that a little bit.
A little bit.
They're like, nah, this has got to be good. Like, he gave it to us. Everybody checked it out. Just keep using that.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, that's fine. That little guy, don't worry about that little guy. But,
so we're about to get to the part of the story where I kind of enter Eric Mancik's life. So we're going to take a quick break here real quick. We'll play a couple of the show ads, and then we'll come back and we'll get in deep with Eric Mancik, Matt Johnson, and your boy Ty Cobb here. And we'll be right back.
On average, we lose 22 veterans to suicide every single day. These heroes who once fought for our freedom now battle invisible wounds. Mission 22 is dedicated to healing our veterans and providing them the support they need. As a leader in our community, we stand with Mission 22 as we believe in giving back to those who have given up so much for us. It's our way of saying thank you for your service. For more information, visit mission22.com.
Proud, patriotic, purpose-driven. Welcome to Got Your Six, a veteran-owned t-shirt brand that's more than just apparel, it's a movement. We're a small veteran-owned business founded for those that understand the meaning of service. At Got Your Six, every design we make tells a story of courage, sacrifice, and the undeniable bond between those that protect and serve the country and communities they love. Our mission, to honor veterans, first responders, and the values that unite us all. Whether you're showing off your pride or gifting it to someone that served, Got Your Six, we've got you covered, literally. When you shop with Got Your Six, you're not just buying a t-shirt, everybody. You're supporting a veteran-owned business, giving back to our community, and wearing your values proudly. So join the movement. Shop now and let your shirt speak for you. Visit us at Same Flag, Same Oath, because you know what? Freedom is always in style.
Freedom is always in style. SameFlagSameOath.com. If you need to get some cool gear, like you always see your boy Ty Cobb wear, just give us a call. SameFlagSameOath.com. What do you think about this so far?
It's good. Sorry I'm late. Yeah.
Oh, it's all good. I appreciate you getting here. Yeah. A lot of stuff going on. So let me set the stage for the rest of the podcast. So at this point, I've been at Fort Campbell for a decade, deployed a bunch of times, and then I get my orders for 2nd Engineer Battalion at White Sands Missile Range. And I think I'm going to go to teach some NASA people how to use a radio or something, or how to do some stuff at the test center. I had no idea there was an active duty unit there. So after six deployments at this time, I was going there literally to try to take some time off. I thought it was going to be kind of a easier assignment. I thought I was getting a plush assignment because I tried to do the ROTC. They were going to give me like Black Rock, Ohio. That was too cold for me. So I chose White Sands Missile Range because I literally thought I was going to go test nuclear bombs and shit. So lo and behold, I get there. It is a brand new unit that's the only active duty unit on White Sands Missile Range. So automatically everybody on the post, from the garrison to the test center to other tenant units, are just falling over themselves to support us. So it was a very much a target rich environment for getting anything you wanted. So
yeah.
A young
and then Sarah says, then I meet his 23-year-old boss.
And then she meets my 23-year-old boss. Let's bring Eric Mancik back and talk about 2nd Engineer Battalion. All right, I've set the stage a little bit. So
yeah.
You get the 2nd Engineer, and you kind of said a little bit.
So real quick though, to go a little. So Ty, you'd been on 6 deployments already.
Yeah, by the time I get to White Sands, yeah.
And then how many deployments had you gone on, Eric, at that point?
Just the one.
Just the one. Okay. This is really important information to tell everybody.
Yeah,
I promise.
No, for sure.
So
Yeah,
I got one question before we start. So, what was worse, you getting yelled at with the triangle at West Point, or you hearing me yell at Gaddy? Which was worse?
Well, one, I was getting yelled at. The other one, I was just watching it happen.
Right, that's true. That's true.
And you weren't the only one that yelled at Gaddy.
Yeah,
I think by our powers combined, we finally turned him into a solid NCO.
Oh yeah, by the time he got to Fort Campbell, he could fly. But I mean, at White Sands, we did have to yell at him a couple times. Anyway, so you get to White Sands. What happens then?
Yeah. So I'm there. So yeah, for those joining, I'd gotten there. It was literally third person signed in from the unit. My first NCOIC was an E5. Bless his heart, he was doing the best he could. Both of us were working two levels above, 2 pay grades above us, because battalion S6 it's a captain's spot. And usually for that one, you've got a little bit of time in the Army and know what's going on. And there I was, second lieutenant, Mancik, didn't know crap other than what I learned on the deployment. I'd never been an S6 in garrison either. And we're standing up a unit from scratch. And so, Ty, to your point, thinking it's going to be a cushy assignment, it was anything but. Because we first set up shop in like old whatever era buildings that were not meant. It was old barracks and stuff like that. There was nothing for us. I mean, the base was an R&D facility, R&D facility, and there was supposed to be another BCT that was going to get activated there. And when budget cuts started around then, they hadn't broke ground in their facilities, so they got just cut completely. So there's just 2nd Engineers all by itself. We're bordering Fort Bliss. We're White Sands giving us as much help as they could, but we're the only force comm unit, only active duty unit like that. They didn't know exactly what we needed. So we were constantly dealing with folks at Bliss, and Bliss was like, wait, who are you guys? Where are you at? But yeah, so it was entertaining. But yeah, so you showed up, and it was definitely, it was interesting because I think we first met, you showed up, I think, as an E7, but you had just gotten promoted as you were leaving Campbell.
No, I didn't get promoted until we were deployed in Afghanistan. But yeah, I had a sequence number I'd already had a sequence number for like a year. My list was just really long, so I hadn't got promoted yet.
Yeah, because remember we first were in contact. It was emailing with Staff Sergeant Cobb at the time. But yeah, so no, it was interesting because we're setting everything up. definitely also learned really important lessons in humility, because when we're going on a blitz trying to also, get what we needed, I was just admitting to people left and right, like, guys, I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. But like, wait, what? You're admitting you need help? Come here. It must be really bad. We'll take care of it. So I was like, guys, I'm in charge of a whole lot of important stuff. So shoot, move, communicate. I own communicate. It's rather important. So it was interesting. But yeah, you came on, and that was you came on after our NTC rotation. So you missed that one. But yeah, that was it was comical for different things. Yeah, the shop we had was some interesting characters. We had Gaddy, we had Graniti, we had Roll, and then some of the other guys. But yeah, I remember you missed.
Riffle.
Oh yeah, can't miss. With Miss Riffle. But no, my brain went to. I took Graniti, Riffle. No, not Riffle. Gaddy. And somebody, I think might have been somebody else, but went to NTC, put him in the vehicle, and we drove there, and it was nuts. Talking about yelling at stuff. Gaddy was my senior person with us, and we're in the middle of the night trying to get comms, validate anything else so we can plug into the network, and he starts pissing and moaning, and it must have been 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We hadn't slept in like 24 hours, and I looked at him, I was like, dude, pull him aside. It's like, you got to get it together. Like, this is you're a senior enlisted person here. You got to set the example for the guys. It's like, if you don't, I will smoke you till the sun comes up. He needed a shower because I smoked until the sun came up. I came up with that muscle for every muscle group I could think of. But fast forward another time, I think he got put up for, I thought it was possibly NCO, the rotation for an NTC rotation after I'd left. So I don't know. Looking back, hey, maybe it helped kind of put the boot up his butt like it needed, but hey. But you came in. We're still trying to figure stuff out. You're probably looking at me like, what is going on? What did I screw up in a previous life?
No, I mean, it actually never felt like that to me. I remember thinking, that when I got there, I remember everyone falling over themselves to help us, and then by that time you had already kind of learned to a point to where I was happy. Like I was worried that I was going to come to a lieutenant that didn't know anything, but I was very happy with what all you knew. So I mean, what was the experience like for you going there and going through all that? Do you think that helped you as a leader?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, because like I said, the humility piece was big. I mean, I could have been your stereotypical, ring knocker, all this other crap and things like that. But I mean, one, that wasn't how I was raised, and two, I didn't get anything. I mean, at the end of the day, we had to make things happen. And like I said, not knowing stuff, not having the contacts, not being part of the Fort Bliss community type stuff, you're at a disadvantage. So you had to get really creative with stuff. Remember scrounging stuff, having to figure things out. I mean, heck, I remember one live fire exercise. I think it was before you got there. We burned down Humvee, but that's a separate story. But on that one, we're setting up.
That takes talent, by the way.
Oh yeah, it was the Green Beast, and that was she was interesting. But yeah, burn that sucker to the ground. Lucky.
Could you do that purposefully though? You know what I mean? Like to do that, and like we meant to do that. That had to have been an accident.
Yeah, no, that was complete accident.
Yeah, because if you're trying to do it, they're like, we're not dying, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Like this. Oh yeah, when you don't want,
and then you're like, that's all it takes to do it. Like when you look back, you're like, that's all we had. Oh man.
Oh yeah. Well, that one, I dragged out for this thing because it's live fire, so you gotta have live comms, for the entire, lane and everything else, and they couldn't get comms working in part because S3 Shot didn't listen to what I told them to do, because went out there, validated everything. It's like, here's the 10-digit grid of where you need to put the antenna. Here's, all the details. And of course, they didn't put it right where it needed to be. I had to figure out how to basically bounce the radio signal off of the face of like a ridgeline to bounce it back up the valley, because they're like, well, we need to talk. Like, well, then I need to put a retrans here. I'm like, well, it's in the, basically it's in, danger of getting shot, things like that. We can't put it there. It's like, okay, well, I can't talk through a mountain. So the laws of physics say that's not going to work. So yeah, we just had to figure it out. But yeah, no, it was important. Plus, working with, also having to stand up for, different things. Because I mentioned the E5 I had as the NCIC. When I got there, the dude was way out of his, weight class, doing the best he could. He was doing a really good job. Eventually, the stress got to him, and he started kind of making mistakes and things like that. And so I had one of his NCOERs was basically, hey, he's walking on water. The next one was the wheels had fallen off, and it was, hey, this is a problem. And I remember our battalion sergeant major flat out telling me to change his evaluation, and it was Gettings, I think.
Yeah.
He and I didn't like each other, and it started kind of from that one, because I was like, no. It's like, I will take all the recommendations you've got for how I can phrase things, everything else, but this is my evaluation, not yours.
Well, what's interesting is a lot of guys that are in over their head in the military are kind of forced into that role, right? But even though you force people into that role, they still tend to look and judge and approach you as if you've been there. That's your actual billet, right? Like, you should have been doing that job. And they don't ever go like, hey man, this dude, like, this isn't his role. Like, he's just here doing the best he can. And so I used to see that in the Navy a lot too. You put guys in a position because you were undermanned, and they're looking at this dude like, he sucks. Like, no shit, he doesn't know what he's doing, or she, or whatever it is. You got to help him, right? So
the thing that kind of messed up, him, that I couldn't overlook, was at NTC we lost accountability of sensitive items, and we lost accountability of radios. And as we were trying to roll back, found out a couple of the radios had gotten packed away, and that we had drawn from NTC, from their supply yard. They were packed up in a truck. It wasn't a sensitive item truck either, and on the road going back to our unit. And so we had to literally get the truck turned around and find them. Obviously a big deal. It would have been Hands Across America type stuff, looking for that stuff. And it's like, dude, like, so that was one of those things where, regardless of rank, it's like you said, all the credit, different stuff. I mean, he was giving it his all, and I definitely appreciate everything he was doing for us. I mean, like you said, he didn't ask for that. He should have been the E5 working underneath, at least an E6, or if
he should have been in the best rank and position in the military. E5, bro. There is no better job than an E5 in the military, because you ain't in charge of nobody, and you're not responsible for anybody. So you kind of can like get in where you fit in, It's the best job.
I think the biggest thing I remember from first getting to 2nd Engineer Battalion is like, I don't want to sound like a pompous ass, but I had been there and done a lot of the stuff that they were going to be doing. So I remember when I first got there, they would ask exactly what they wanted from you. Like, they would say, I need 3 radios. I need, this, I need this over there. We're going to be using this. And at some point I remember looking at the OS3. I don't even remember if Major Vell was there yet or if it was another people, but I remember looking at the OS3. It was like, look, I know how to make us communicate in every way you want to. Redundant comms will be like a craziness going on in this battalion, but you can't tell me in a op order everything you want me to do. You request some effect, and I will fill that effect. You want to communicate? Let's do that. And once we got those reins off, that's when I saw Eric kind of turn into a fucking superstar, because as you notice, he mentioned at the beginning he was called the S. So he learned a little bit of S1, a little bit of S2, a lot of S3. And he learned a lot of S4 because he had a really good friend that was S4.
Yep.
And then so by the time I got there, he already had kind of the lay of the land. So, I mean, how do you think that affected you being thrown, kind of to the wolves with 70th downrange and for Oregon E for a little while, and then coming to 2nd Engineer Battalion, having to unfuck that whole situation, and then dealing with NCOs, and then now we get deployment orders.
Yeah, honestly, I think it.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Before we get to the deployment orders, I want to acknowledge Sarah's in the room. She said, love this guy and his family. Sarah's my wife. Of course, Dr. Hillary Mancik is Eric's wife. It was a tremendous support to me during their deployments in all the right ways. So, like, she knew what the place were going on, like off post, because she was a professional like my wife, and then she knew what was going on with the military. Because at that point, my wife was new to the military. So we had a bond, and then our whole family kind of had a bond. It was kind of cool. So anyway, talk about deployment orders.
Yeah. So the deployment orders came down, and we were originally doing the train up to go to Iraq, and then request for forces came down, and all of a sudden, instead of going to Iraq, we're all but one company, because they still needed a route clearance company in Iraq. The rest of us were going to Afghanistan. And so it was like, all right, well, that's not what we trained for. And like you said, you've been there, done that, and other guys in the unit had as well. And so, like, guys, this is not the same. This is a different fight. And so we were rapidly trying to figure that stuff out, and doing different things. The benefit of being at White Sands is geography-wise, it was very reminiscent of Afghanistan. Because actually the town, if you remember, Ty, between Post and Las Cruces was Oregon. You're going through it 55 miles an hour. But my first deployment, I was at Oregon E. And honestly, they looked very eerily similar.
Oregon is actually Pat Garrett's old farm. It's, I guess, that whole area.
Yeah.
Pat Garrett had a farm there at the Oregon Mountains. So anyway,
so it was nuts. So we're training up for that thing, getting ready. I remember different stories, and I saw the comments from Sarah. You and I went down to one of the conference rooms, and we took over basically the whiteboards, and we whiteboarded out our basically deployment communications plan type stuff. And I don't think we really had to change much. It was just like, all right, take a picture, we're done. But like you said, I mean, it's the PACE plan. You got a primary, ultimate, contingency, emergency for all kinds of stuff. You mentioned the S4. I mean, that was Todd Severson, really good friends with him, but I can't, be remiss. I didn't mention Chief Carmina Quintanilla.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, she had all the connections from Bliss, and so we actually, to make sure we could talk, I pulled up my dad's old scrounger, type approach, and Carmina found out she could get us, I remember it was like 30 something or less Iridium sat phones. None of the secure sleeves, they weren't activated. They're supposed to be getting turned in. Actually, they were turned in, but they hadn't been disposed of. And so I was like, get them. Like, we'll take them with us. We'll figure it out later. Ownership's 9/10 of the law. We're packing up the old, two-wire like radios, handheld stuff. I mean, the crap they use in Vietnam for, setting up communications between the towers. Because when we were going, we didn't fall in on an established fob. It was a goat field.
It was literally
a
bunch of Navy
CBs. Yeah,
CBs built it for us. Built the Daydotty 2.
Yep.
No, was it called Daydotty 2?
Daydotty 2. Yeah. It was Daydotty 2. Yeah, because when we got there, we remember.
You're welcome.
Hey, I like those CBs. They were good people, especially since they let us eat in the DFAC. Or rather, their mess.
For a little while.
Well, it was yeah. But when we got there, some people were telling us like, you get here early. Like, how do you deploy early? But our guys, our leadership they were salivating at the idea of being in command, going down range type stuff. But yeah, we got there. The CBs, we found out, were providing their own security, and they don't have a security detachment with them. So we were like, well,
yeah, we do. It's whatever's with you.
Yeah, and we're like, we'll provide you security. We're like, well, we only can have so much life support available. Like, cool, you tell us how many of our guys you can take, and we'll feed them to you. And you can take more, we'll send you more, because the faster you guys can build it, the faster we can get over there and out of our temporary type whatever crap. Yeah, so I mean, it went from goat field to fob. We had to plan out putting in the fiber ring. I remember having to find the battalion or like the communications company, whatever, that was supposed to be supporting us, and got them to slice over a CPN to us. And yeah, then finally their unit came over and they're supposed to take over putting in the fiber ring, and they just didn't know what they were doing. They were leaving open pits, open trenches, no chem lights, no markings, nothing. Like, you're going to get somebody killed. Yeah, they were stupid. But
so I got to tell a quick story. Big brain, check this out. So Matt, we had some Navy CBs that were building or digging a drill or digging a well. So they had, big machinery out there. They're drilling every day, and it's right between the dining facility tent and our battalion talk tent. So it's probably a quarter-mile walk or something. So you're walking back and forth every day. There's big lines. So we had a soldier that had a propensity to like just stop and look up, and she would look up in the sky.
And she was thinking.
She was thinking.
She's thinking.
Look. And then she would start sprinting to where she was going. She just, when things popped in her head, she did it, right?
I always feel like, what does she know that I don't know?
Right. Okay. So one day, a bunch of us are walking by. I think I walked by, and I'm already down at the talk. And then Riffle is behind Grenady. So she stops. She's looking up, right in front of where they're digging this well. She's looking up. And then she takes off running, man, like towards the talk, like she's got to get back to work. And these CBs, they spread out and they're jumping across stuff, through stuff, and then Riffle's walking up to him afterwards, and he's like, "No, guys, no. She does that sometimes. She was just thinking, and once it gets into her head when she wants to go, she just starts running. But yeah, she scared the shit out of them CBs that we're drilling. I won't say her name. She may have been the absolute best 25 Bravo that I ever worked with.
Her nickname was Neo.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
We sent her after, but she was also your stereotypical brainiac type stuff. She couldn't like qualify with her weapon to save her life. I'll be honest. We had to put people on not just one side, on both sides of her at the range to shoot her targets because she couldn't hit the broadside of the barn if she was 6 inches in front of it.
I don't remember that happening, but
yeah,
I remember it's Stone Cold Killer. No, I'm just
joking. She could totally do that down periscope thing. Oh, we can talk now.
Let me give you another story. Quick story about this same girl. So we're in the middle of setting up, and we have nothing. Like it's a depletion of forces, depletion of assets. Everything's going south to Helmand Province. Nothing's coming to Mazar Sharif, where we are, Deidati 2, where we are. They're not giving us really anything. We're having to resource everything ourselves. People are working in 2 or 3 different locations. So at this point, we get these things called snap terminals, and this is a non-secure, so we can have Nipper, and then secure, so we can have secret, email in the network. Start running our network. So I think one of them goes up fairly easy. Maybe the Nipper one goes up fairly easy. And then the Sipper one is giving some trouble. So Big Brain works on it. I'm messing with it a little bit, but I'm not a Bravo. And then everybody's kind of perplexed. So Graniti comes up and
we'd even gotten contractors to come look at it too. And they
we had gotten contractors to give me a new boot file. So I'm looking at the boot file on the screen of the snap terminal. I'm like, going line by line with NetOps. And Graniti comes in, basically pushes me, little ass Graniti, I just said her name, pushes me out of the way and is just like, let me work on this thing. So she starts erasing lines of code and then hits, enter. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, we see it in the mesh. She did this shit on her own. Like it was amazing what she could do.
No notes, no nothing. Just
she could see all this. She was looking at the matrix, dude. She could see it all.
Could look at it like a boot file. Like I don't know if that a boot file is 50, 60, 70 lines sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, we don't, no. Here, enter. It worked.
We sent her over out to check on some stuff at one of the other fobs we had in RC North. And she pissed off, was it 40th Mac was out there? But yeah, she pissed off some of their guys because she didn't tell anybody she was doing something. And all of a sudden they look over and she was doing like the same thing, just jumped onto their, their snap terminal type things. And it's freaking everybody out because, again, she didn't say a word. Well, they've been having issues with their phones. They would drop calls, different things intermittently. And then all of a sudden, somebody's like, she's like, okay, I fixed it. Like, fixed what? Oh, your phones. You're having issues, right? They're like, yeah, but we didn't tell you. She's like, oh, yeah, no, I fixed it.
Yeah. They're like
that.
Where did you come from?
Yeah.
Who sent you?
So, Eric, we're at 1 hour.
Yeah.
And we're starting to tell stories. So let's get back on track a little bit. Yeah. So we finished that deployment. We got a bunch of great stories, and we can talk.
I got one thing I want to slip in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Completely switch, and then I'll give it right back to you. So,
all right.
Do you recognize this?
Yeah. Yeah. Is that my brown star that I gave you?
I just before this, I went out and took it off the sun visor of my car, which stays permanently, and it's the last thing out and the first thing in every time I get a new vehicle, which has only been 2, but still.
Oh, very
so
nice.
The story on this one. Our battalion leadership, different stuff. Bad dynamic. I'll just put it that way. We had some toxic leadership at parts and different things. And I wouldn't say I picked the fight. I just wasn't ever backing down with certain folks. And I mean, we ended up having screaming matches in command and staff and different stuff. And so when it came time for the end of deployment and, awards and everything else like that, before that one, they forced the HAC company commander to figure out how to basically get me for being like overweight. This is one where we're working ridiculous hours. Instead of hitting the gym like a gym rat, like I probably should have, I didn't. And so, I put on a little bit extra weight. And even though we couldn't do official type stuff, whatever in theater, they still had me, flagged. And it made it to make sure that, they could get even or get back at me for basically, doing what I would do again. I don't
being awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I did what I needed to do. We had soldiers getting taken care of. We could talk, we had all kinds of different stuff going on, and I'm proud of everything we did. But what happened was it guaranteed that I wasn't getting a deployment award. But for them being, even further dicks on top of things, they forced me to be at the award ceremony and watch everybody else get their awards. So when Ty got they pinned it to his chest. I went up, shook his hand. He immediately took it off his chest, pinned it on mine, basically screamed at the top of his lungs and looked over at our leadership, who wouldn't make eye contact with him. Said, "Sir, you deserve this more than me." Yeah, they wouldn't even look at him, for that kind of crap. So, yeah, to this day, this is the exact ribbon, and I keep it in my vehicle on my visor at all times as a reminder. So,
wow.
But,
I didn't know you were going to tell that story.
Yeah. Oh, I was definitely telling that story.
Yeah, I remember a lot of times being pretty angry at some of the things that they would try to pull, and I do remember a certain field grade officer telling me to do push-ups until I agree with him, and I said something to the effect of, "What AR is that from? AR 670-Veil?"
Oh yeah, there was epic screaming matches and stuff, but
yeah, there was a lot of things that went on, and just for context, just so people don't think we're full of shit. Like, people don't talk to each other like that. Let me just say, the dynamic that I had as a senior NCO with a bunch of very young lieutenants, some younger captains. Captain Mancik was a captain when I ended up leaving White Sands, so he was kind of a senior lieutenant when I first got him, and then a junior captain, but that whole group of company grade officers, there was just a dynamic and a embracing, I guess, because we were the only unit there. There was no one else for the officers to hang out with. So they kind of hung out with the cool senior NCOs, Coker, Ramon Martinez, George Armstrong, swag on 500 at all times, Joey from FSC. All them FSC guys were cool, all the senior NCOs over there. So we had a dynamic to where when we're in such close proximity that, like, no shit, I remember being in arguments with Major Vale. I remember being in arguments with the sergeant major that I did not need to be in because of my rank, but because of the way we operated, we were in the middle of everything, and we were all kind of raw emotion. And it spoke a lot to the fact that what I was saying at the beginning, a lot of the senior NCOs that were in the engineer battalion, and they had all been deployed like me, so they had just back to back. So a lot of them were kind of running raw, and they were any little thing would set them off. So
yeah, well, like I said, the 7th engineers did the unit move down to White Sands. The NCOs that moved down were largely the squad leaders. I deployed with those guys the first time. Like I said, I went out on all kinds of different patrols. I tried to get outside the wire as much as I could. I was a second lieutenant. I needed to learn stuff. So I knew those guys. And so when it came time for us to deploy, those squad leaders were a lot of the platoon sergeants. And I think at least one of them was, a company first sergeant. So for me, yeah, our screaming matches with Vale wasn't because we didn't want to do our job. I was screaming matching with Vale to make sure that our guys could talk. And stuff made sense.
The dynamic that we learn about all the time on the show, because there's three of us that were in the Navy, and then Ty obviously is in the Army. So when I hear stories like that, it surprises me that that's something that a lot of times in the Army is like, we were just fighting for it, and Ty saying that he was in a few like shouting matches he shouldn't have been in. That's exactly where the chief would be all the time. It's our job to take care of the JOs and make sure that the skipper and the XO are good to go, and we step in for that voice of reason. And that's what we're taught to do when we go through that senior enlisted training. We go through our transition to become a chief, and then from the junior enlisted level, making sure that they have a voice too. So like when I hear those stories where you guys are like just trying to pull through, and Ty, every time I hear him talk, he's acting like a chief. That's it. Do what you got to do. You got to protect people. You got to be the guy that steps into the room, and you can yell at me, but I'm going to yell back at you. Like when you carry that kind of respect, like that's what chiefs, senior chiefs, master chiefs, that's what we do in the Navy. Not ever to, like you said, not to say you're not going to do your job, not to say that you're not going to do, some certain thing, but it's always to walk in and go, what are we doing? Why does this seem like a good idea? We need to rethink it and be in that voice of reason sometimes to come in and go, I know you think it's a good idea, but we really need to think about that. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times you're looking like, you've been in the Navy for 3 years. I've been in the Navy for 15 or whatever it is, right? Like, I've done this before. Let me help you through it. there's, you know, JOs and officers that are like, nope, we're going to do it my way. And then the chief is like, all right. And then after it's done, they walk into the room and you go, so how'd that go? And they're like, you don't have to be like that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, just remember this next time.
Beginning. Yeah, for sure. So it's really weird to kind of see that whole perspective. And then, you know, you guys going out on a unit, the chiefs always write the awards and send them up afterwards anyway. So it's like hearing how at work sometimes that you guys is a little different than what we used to do.
Yeah.
It's just it's all the same fight, but it's all ran different. It's crazy.
Yeah. Definitely those 12 months sleeping next to that dude was entertaining at times, but at the same time, no, I wouldn't have changed it for a minute of it. Because
entertaining in what way? In my spontaneity and my mood changes.
Oh, I remember a couple times looking at you and I was like, all right, you know what? Why don't you go ahead and take the day? We're in Afghanistan. I'm like, you know what? Just go take the day.
Oh, that's when I was having my knee issues as well. Like I remember my knees were real bad during that deployment.
Yeah, I mean everything. But no, I mean it was just you said it got to you had more deployment time, you know, than some SF guys that I've met. I mean it's insane. So
and the SF guys ain't got shit on me, man. Like most of them guys got like 14 deployments and about 40 months in. You know, I got 7, but I got like I don't know exactly, but I think it's 70 plus months overseas.
Yeah. Oh, it's insane. So no, you were wealth of knowledge, but at the same time, I just remember looking at you.
Almost like you wanted to just be stationed over there, bro. Just fucking.
Yeah.
I did. I mean, don't get me wrong. I say fuck those SF guys, but those guys are my heroes. That's what I wanted.
Yeah, no, I know. Like I'll be the guy that you see when you come in, be like, "Hey, Joe."
Recruited, all that stuff. I wanted all that stuff to happen.
Like before I hurt my back at the academy, that's the path I was going.
Yeah, exactly.
Special Forces, Delta, all the way, and then I hurt my back and went out the window. But
yeah, not me, man. They showed the video in boot camp for SEALs, and they're like, "You ready?" I was like, "Nope." They're like, "Why?" I'm like, "Did you just watch the video I just watched? Just because it's got Metallica to it doesn't mean I'm gonna go run around and be like, let's go kill everybody." So no, I'm good, man. I'm good.
I was always that crusty, bitter S6. Why? Because I wasn't infantry. I was pissed off because I was stuck in code duty, type thing. That's like I want to be out there, kicking down doors and doing everything else. But I mean, heck, that was. But again, like you said, though, I mean, we're taking care of the soldiers. Our job was to make sure they could talk. And if you weren't helping me, you were a problem. You need to get out of the way, or I'm going to go through you. No, so that was good. But yeah, Ty, I mean, if you want to move us forward for stuff, but
I mean, I want to get to your transition. So the biggest thing I remember for you is like what I kind of want you to talk about how you transitioned out of the active duty, and then kind of glim across what you did with Army West, because I remember thinking when we were talking back and forth then, it's like you did a lot of great stuff there, and then kind of talk about how you got into your job now and how that transition went, with.
So I'll try to move through some of the stuff quickly to set the context for me where I ended up kind of mentally and emotionally on things. So after our deployment, because I was supposed to have gone to the Captain's Career Course in PCS just before our deployment, and so I actually talked to HRC and requested to stay because again, those squad leaders, everybody else, I knew, like, I know these guys, it won't sit well with me if I don't deploy with them and help make sure, they need to be able to do what they can do. So when I got back, I had to bounce. And so I ended up, Captain's Career Course, and because of the eval and all that stuff that, screwed me up with the award, thing I mentioned before, I didn't get any of the options that I wanted. I was talking to, I talked to Delta, about coming on doing comm stuff with them, and they flat out told me like, hey, I see what you're doing, but unfortunately, because your evals, you're going to be bottom of the list automatically, and some other stuff, and so it was, they couldn't touch me. Then at Career Course, I interviewed for a company command position to be Raven Rock Side R. Brigade commander's like, nope, you'd be great. You got all the experience. You're used to working away from the flagpole. Again, don't know exactly why. HRC wouldn't let me, fill the billet for some reason. They told a brigade commander in command they couldn't do a by name select for one of the company commanders. So that pissed me off. Then, get orders going back to Texas, to Hood, and it was like, oh, cool, fine. It wasn't Fort Bliss. At least it was, it was at Hood. And that's.
I lived at Fort Hood for a while.
Yeah. Oh,
that's where I joined the Navy.
Yeah, I showed up there shortly after. I don't remember which one of the shootings back then, but the But anyways, but got there, and yeah, it was, First Army Division West ACRC unit. And so the mission we got is basically, ACRC active component, reserve component. But the unit as a whole was to do basically training evaluations for National Guard primarily, and some reserve units, mainly National Guard, that were mobilizing to deploy. And I was with 166 Aviation Brigade. And so obviously we focused on aviation units. And so we were just cycling units through, for this stuff. And the big thing that we would do is brigade exercises. And so this was all kind of simulated type stuff, because we're really focused on just, does the brigade staff know how to function as a staff? Can they command and control the units and elements, and just do what that process looks like and deal with different scenarios? We'd also do, flight, checks and, flight, check rides and stuff with their pilots, different things, but it was kind of different, disjointed type stuff. Well, we used to go down to Fort Rucker, Alabama for these things, because we needed their sim center. And, me and my section of 3 of us, to include myself, I figured out, we got everything we need here at Hood. Why are we going down to Rucker? So we basically recreated it and did it at Hood, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. But while I was there, so I went down the rabbit hole with that one, got a call from West Point to come back and be an instructor. Like, dude, I'm all about it. Be great. And same thing happened again. HRC wouldn't let me touch it. They wouldn't, like, the academy never got any explanation. They told me, like, we've never seen this before. We can't touch you. So at the end of the day, stuff that I wanted to do kept getting shut down, and it just looked like I was going to get, basically just Brigade 6, that kind of path, everything. And so it was always just like going into these organizations that were like basically in a bad way. Because my predecessor, I found out from my DA civilian that worked for me, he was going to quit within 2 weeks of me showing up, but he was giving me 2 weeks to prove that I wasn't a piece of crap like my predecessor was. And I was just trying to do the basic stuff that made sense, and different things like that. And so he stayed on, which was great, because Mike Adams was awesome individual, retired, military, type stuff, and he kept doing it. So I'm very happy to have him stay on. But after all that stuff, and just looking at the direction my career was going, and it's just kind of getting burned out. And I made a decision to get out of active duty. And I remember talking to my brigade commander about it, and he just flat out looked at me. He's like, but you're so good at what you do. I was like, sir, there's a difference between being good at it and enjoying it. And looking back, I enjoyed doing stuff, but I was just getting burned out. And
so
just,
I was going to say, when you talk to this guy, your brigade commander, so every time you had applied for another thing and they said you couldn't go, do these people see that happening too? Do they not recognize that, like, I keep trying to do other things to help in other ways, and I keep getting, like, the door slammed on me? Did they recognize that stuff when they were talking to, or they were just coming at you from, like, the same old, like, you're really good, are you sure you want to go, just trying to beg you to stay in because they don't want to lose somebody? Or how were those conversations for you?
So they only knew about the West Point thing. I coming out of the career course and other stuff. So, I talked to him about it, and, he's like, happy to try to, work you, with a different assignment coming up. Cause I would have been due, shortly thereafter to PCS, or, change assignments or whatever, even at Hood. And so, no, because actually one of them, he ended up, because I had 2 brigade commanders when I was in that unit. And the first one, he retired and then tried to recruit me to a civilian job after he found out I was getting out, doing simulation stuff with him in Miami. I told him, I was like, sir, you don't got to convince me, you got to convince the boss. He's like, so is there any chance of that? It's like, no. You probably have better chance of getting the company to move their headquarters than you got convincing my wife to move to Miami, Florida. But no, so I thought it was genuine. Really just looking, it's like, because I like that unit. I like the command team and everybody else. So I think, but they respected it and they understood kind of the why. Looking back, definitely torn about, should I stayed in? Should I, was I good getting out? There's different, because there's things you miss about it in the civilian world. And that's
what rank did you end up attaining in the Army?
So when I left active duty, I was a senior captain. I switched to the reserves, and within 2 months was promoted to major. And so I did the reserves mainly for health insurance. I went back and did grad school and did the standard junior military thing and got my MBA. Spent a piece of paper that says I can lead people, process, and things.
Yep.
Matt's got about 3 of them.
Ask me how many people asked to see it.
None.
Exactly.
Yeah, you check a box on a.
It's really important to get it, everybody, or just put it on your resume. No one's going to ask you.
Yeah, they don't care unless you're using it to get a job immediately coming out of whatever school you get it from. Afterwards, nobody cares. You're meeting a qualification requirement, and that's it.
I need a job then.
But yeah, no. So anyways, getting out. I mean, that was one of those things where I just was looking at it, and my daughter had been born when I was at Hood, so she was about 2 at the time, and it was just one of those things like, so with the family, atmosphere and stuff, I'm just wanting to make sure I was, seeing my daughter and stuff. And I'll tell one, quick story that had happened even before then as an option that probably wouldn't have been able to be messed up by HRC. I was talking with, I'll just say a unit that, if I joined them, it would have been, a long-standing kind of change for stuff. And it was, kind of given the final decision, it's like, hey, we definitely want to make sure your wife's on board with this because you'll probably be, traveling a lot, different things like that. And so, it's kind of, that would be the rest of my career was kind of that, aspect of things. And so I remember talking to Hillary, and, we made an agreement early on and was say, for me to her was, if you ever don't like this lifestyle, let me know, because the green machine's moving on. They don't care who you are. So I could do 30 years in the Army, but if I've got nothing to show for it when the time's over, the Army doesn't care, and so it was important to me to make sure that it was still something that she was good with. And she never had an issue with, any of the other stuff, the deployments and things. But she did tell me after my daughter was born type stuff was, I don't want you to look back in, 20 years and realize you missed everything, on the family side. So it's like, nope, I'm good. So I will never hold that against her in a million years, but that's just one of those things. It's the dynamic is it's all the whole family, not just me. So I made the decision to get out. Did the MBA route just because I was talking to headhunters and I got one of them drunk one night and he admitted that, he could probably land me in a company anywhere. But since I didn't have a master's degree or an MBA, I was going to hit this pay ceiling. So the next day I sent a nice email, didn't dime them out. And said, all right, thanks guys, but I think I'm going to use my GI Bill and go back to school, get my MBA.
Which is, you know what? Like, I know that we're talking about other stuff, but you're bringing some things up that I have questions about now. How valid is that though? Let's just ask that question. Are you really going to hit a pay ceiling if you don't have an MBA? I think that's some bullshit people tell us. And I'm going to just jump on a soapbox for a minute. And the reason I believe that is I know a whole bunch of people paid a whole bunch of money that have no education. So I'm tired of hearing people just tell me you don't want me to do that job. Just tell me that I'm not the one that you want to hire and just move on. Stop giving me the excuse of what's in your job description when I see it all the time. People are just given stuff. You know what I mean? It bothers me when I hear you'll hit a pay ceiling or you can't come in or you're not qualified. It's like, dude, we could look at like 10 people you have working for you and none of them are qualified, but they're in charge of everything. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing. And when you transition out, if you're an officer, it's immediately assume certain stuff. If you're enlisted, senior enlisted, doesn't matter. You're also assume certain stuff. And so it's a lot easier as an officer getting out than it is for E7, E8, E9, unless you're doing, some contacts you got through, defense contractors and other things or something like that. But if you're just applying to a company, it's not fair because same thing. It's like, oh, well, you got the right paperwork. Okay. But the other guy's got the actual experience.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you on that. I mean, now that I'm out and in, doing this corporate thing, the minimum education requirements that I've seen that's fairly consistent is if you want to kind of hit a certain level of leadership, managerial levels, is at least a 4-year degree. That's it. After that, it's a differentiator on a resume, and that's about it. It's like, hey, if you're going to apply somewhere and you got 2 people, one's got an MBA and one doesn't, you're probably going to go with the MBA guy. But it's not.
Yeah, I mean, but again, it really just depends on, right? Like I don't know if that's the way they look at it though. Like, who do they want? You know what I mean? As long as they can justify that they have it there. So that's the hard part. If you're looking at it externally, disclaimer, I do recruiting for a living. So when you're looking at these resumes and talking to people, me as a recruiter, I don't always take the resume at face value. because if I can see that the skill set is in there, I still want to talk to the individual, because what we miss out on a lot of times, just for me and my own search, transitioning from the military, is that like we apply to places, we suck at speaking civilian. That's a foreign language to us, and I don't think we're ever going to learn how to do it. And once you do the interviews and figure out what the job is, you're like, oh shit, if I'd have just wrote my resume like that, they would have seen that. So when I'm doing it, I'm like, well, I want to talk to this person, walk them through the job description, figure out what they know how to do. And I've helped a lot of people, not knocking on wood or praising anything, but I've helped quite a few people get jobs that if you would have only looked at their resume, they'd have never been considered, which is crazy, because I ask hiring managers all the time, like, did you ever have to go like find a job? I mean, I'm just asking because you really act like you've never had to find a job. Like we just pulled a lottery ticket and you showed up the next day. You know what I mean? Like these are, I just don't think we look at that good enough. I'd be interested to hear what, and like you said earlier, coming from an officer side to an enlisted, it's a little bit different, right? Because it's taught differently. So what's different that you've seen other than what I am describing, or do you see it kind of the same way?
I see it a lot the same way. I mean, I've been a mentor on the ACP mentorship several times, because I really enjoy it and trying to pay it forward. Because, like you said, regardless of officer enlisted, we don't know civilian speak. We speak in acronyms that are completely different. I mean, corporate world, there's still a lot of acronyms, but we don't know how to phrase things right, let alone just write it in a resume in like the STAR format or whatever else the current standard. And so it's a challenge. I remember one of my better friends, from the military. Her name's Tanya, and I asked her to help me with just proofing my resume and beating it up, and she chewed it apart, and she did a bunch of the bullets. She's like, okay, why does this matter? I was like, well, different stuff. She's like, it's definitely really interesting, unique, cool, whatever. She's like, but what was the impact of this? And it was some of my favorite things from the military. And she's like, that's great. It's not helping you in a resume.
Yeah, but nobody cares about that.
Yeah.
You need to go find the most boring thing you did, write that in your resume, because that's what they want to see, which is crazy. I look at resumes all the time where guys are just rewriting their evaluations in there. And you're like, dude, nobody cares what your team did. You're trying to get a job. You have to write about you,
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. Exactly. That's the hard part is, it's always about the team. It's not about you in the military. And so then you got to flip it around and it just feels awkward. Exactly. I mean, doing that stuff, it was painful. I mean, yeah, I remember some like, resume bullets for about maintaining, whatever 99 point whatever percent uptime of network availability.
Yeah.
Other badmin boring crap. I'm like, who like, no, but that's important. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So that was hard. And, and so thankfully doing that, it was one of the reasons I ended up doing the grad school option. Wasn't so much to try to, I use it as a transition jobs program, because I did the full-time MBA program at Michigan State, and I wanted a program because I applied to different places, and I did a recruiting event at U of M, and it was off-putting to me because their MBA class sizes were 400 plus, and you were just kind of lost in the crowd. And it's not, it's a great program for different stuff, but when I went and did the visits at Michigan State, it's a lot smaller program, and it was like I could definitely get the feel for it. It was more than I was looking for. It was a better fit for me, and I think it was really helpful because one, it just helped to some extent me try to, de-stress, because again, I was wound tight. I mean, heck, coming back from our deployment, I was on ADBAN, so Ty wasn't with me, but I was burned out from that leadership dynamic and things like that. And so when you're doing the reverse SRP for medical, checks, you get the health screening, mental health screening. And then one of the questions, the standard ones, are you thinking to hurt yourself or anybody else? Well, they should have separated
everyone else.
I wasn't worried about hurting myself, but I was on the return flight with our S3, who I had those screaming matches with. And I remember our battalion physician's assistant, Doc comes over because I had pulled to the side, and he just sits down next to me and then starts talking. He's like, why'd you do it? Like, do what? Just plain dumb. He's like, what? It's like, hey, they asked the question. I gave an honest answer. He's like, yeah, I just had to spend the last 20 minutes explaining to them that, you're not going to hurt yourself or somebody else. It helped that they talked to, so-and-so, and they got a, piece of why you answered that way. So we're out of here. So yeah, I was just burned out. So I needed the time to decompress. But yeah, no, so with that, it helped me kind of learn, more of the civilian, lingo and speak, which was huge. So by the time it came time for applying to companies and things like that, it really gave me that chance to polish those skills. And having the time of just having to do command and staff and all the other things, I was comfortable, talking with people, and different things. So it made it a lot easier for me, to interview once, like you said, once you learn how to do that translation, your military, don't care what rank, you're going to stand out because you've got that leadership capabilities. And I don't care if you've deployed or not. You're going to be put in stressful situations. You're going to be put in stressful training situations. You're still in dangerous situations where people's lives depend on, certain decisions or just things along those lines. So you're used to having to make a choice, and not everybody out there can kind of navigate those dynamics, I'll say. So
I think that's also a dynamic that worries people that haven't been in the military when you're hiring to get these jobs. I think that's another piece. You kind of hit that on the head a little bit, of the unknown of what they get with us. We walk into a room, we're just applying for some basic job, and they ask us how we would take care of a situation, and we can break it down and walk them through how to take a look at that from a level-headed perspective and identify the risk, mitigate the risk, still make it great for everybody, and then still over exceed expectations in production. And people go, oh no, well, I need my job. So how can we make sure this person, doesn't get whatever? I don't know. But I know that I was told a whole bunch of times I was overqualified to do things. I was just like, I don't even want to be the boss.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to work. That's all I want to do. I don't want to be someone's boss. I did enough of that already. I don't care to make the decisions. I'll help you make the decisions. You can take all the credit and get all the raises. I don't even care. And a lot of times they just can't believe that we would say that. They're like, there's no way. We're like, well, you haven't obviously done anything that we've done. And now working in a corporate environment, you see that that's how it works sometimes. You know what I mean? You have all these people that you're working with all over. Ty's been in places, I've been in places, you've obviously been in places where we're working, and the people that you're talking to that, you're working with in some cases that are making the decisions, you're just looking at them like, how did you even get to that conclusion? Like, why is that the first thing you're thinking of, or why is that what you're looking at? And then you find out real quick, nobody wants to hear your suggestions. So you just go, all right, cool. Well, let me go find another place to work because I need to go somewhere else where you feel valued, right? And I think that's a lot of the reason you see veteran job hop, right? Because they're like, yep, well, these people don't care about me. Let me go find somewhere where they do. And we're just trying to find that next unit to get orders to, you know what I mean? They're far and few in between in the civilian sector, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. I think one of the other things too is, the people don't know, like, they don't give the chance to understand what they can bring to the table too.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I saw that a little bit, thankfully not a ton, but at the same time, I've been in the company I'm with now for about 8 years, so I haven't too much, but it's a little bit intimidating for certain stuff. But it's like, guys, I don't care what your rank was, what your job was, like, bring a lot to the table just with the critical thinking piece. So yeah, I'd agree. And that's one for me. I mean, right now, I've done pretty well with the company I'm with because, I'm there trying to solve problems. I'm with a manufacturing company, and I do IT. It's still kind of largely what I did in the Army, just wearing civilian clothes these days. My job's to make sure that the plants can produce and their IT systems aren't what's holding them back.
Yeah.
And, I'm not in the plants. I'm, at corporate, but, have car will travel, so I go to the plants all the time. And somebody I respect told me, like, yeah, you're one of the good ones. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you come here.
Yeah, man. Like, let me just interject real quick, Big Brain. So I remember, like, he would call me and we would wax poetic about things. Like, the wax poetic thing kind of came from him. We would literally, I want to hit on this. We would literally be watching a movie, listening to a bub on the sipper, probably doing something on the nipper, have some music going on. And, that was just his desk. And I would have the same thing going on at my desk. And the whole while we're just multitasking. So, like, okay, I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. I have so many stories I want to talk about, but I don't want to keep you all night. So,
oh, I'm good now. The boss she's going over with a friend. Our kids are out with some friends. She's like, you can go.
Oh, okay.
When you're there. So, when you're done, but
I'm sorry to interject. I had.
No,
To,
you're good. You're good.
You're
but,
good. I think Ty, his seat was getting hot on his ass because he's really excited to ask you some questions and see what you
go for it, Ty.
Yeah, I figured since Scott's not here tonight, we'll have like a little bit lighter of a hot seat, but I do want to put him in the hot seat just so we can get a couple answers to a couple questions that everybody wants to know. Of course, we're gonna ask those couple of questions, but yeah, let's do the hot seat real quick.
I am not a hot seat guy, so I will bow out and let you handle that, Ty.
All right, here we go on the hot seat. I've never put anybody on the hot seat before, so. You're going to get the music and everything.
I lost your audio, Ty.
You got me back now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so normally Scott will ask, about 10 questions. They'll be rapid, so we'll get into it. It'll be fun. All right, first question. What is more important to you? Loyalty or respect?
Probably loyalty.
All right, loyalty and why?
I mean, respect's important and everything, but at the same time, I mean, things get hard, things get easy at times, back and forth, but I feel like with the loyalty, I mean, you're going to get people that are going to, kind of stick it out, both personal and work and, social dynamics. And so it's, that with that loyalty, it's like, hey, got to trust me here, those kinds of things. So I think at the end of the day, it's a law of averages. It's going to probably be more important.
Gotcha. All right. Next one. What is your favorite beer? And if it's the beer that I think it is, I want you to tell me your favorite story of driving beer across the country.
Well, it is. It's Yingling. So yeah, that one. Gosh, yeah, I was coming back to White Sands, and for those that aren't familiar with Yingling, they've got a kind of a limitation of where the distribution is. So it's not available everywhere. And at the time, I don't think it was available west of the Mississippi. And so I don't remember exactly where I was coming from, but I was somewhere east of the Mississippi, driving across, and I, kind of figured where it might be the limiting factor. And so I stopped. I think it was a Sam's Club at the time, because we had the Sam's Club at a Costco in Cruces, and I basically bought a pallet of Yingling. At the time, I had an F-150 with a hardcover, and on the back of the truck, and people were looking at me like I was freaking nuts at the store because that was the only thing I bought. And it was like on the dolly and just all the beer, and I filled the back of that truck and got home and literally stacked it up in the house because we used to do monthly.
Oh yeah, I was with you. I helped unstack it out of the truck. Remember, you called me. It's like, hey, I got a bunch of beer. I was like, what?
A bunch of beer. What the? Yeah, it was a lot of beer. Hillary thought I was nuts.
Well, I thought I knew you were awesome at that point. Was that before or after the deployment?
After.
That was after? Okay.
It was after.
Yeah. All right. So the next question. All right, this is kind of a sensitive one for the podcast. We have a lot of people that go one way or the other on this one. So, in your opinion, who is the greatest of all time? Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
Jordan.
Okay, why?
I mean, I saw him back then, growing up and watching him play. He did stuff that was just insane. He was the only one able to do those things at the time. I mean, yeah, LeBron's great. I'm not going to say he's not good. I mean, he's definitely one of the best players out there. But Jordan himself was just such a natural athlete with everything. Yeah, he wasn't a great baseball player, but at the same time, he redefined the game.
Yeah, it was beautiful to watch. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. My man John Keats said that. It was also
watching
in a movie.
Him play basketball was like watching Barry Sanders play football.
Yeah, hey, it's beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. All right, next question. What is the best thing about Michigan?
Best thing about Michigan? Ooh, some people probably disagree with me, but I would say, it's the seasons. That's one of the reasons I came back to Michigan, is I missed it. I missed having the change in the seasons to help track the time. I mean, right now our winter isn't exactly feeling like winter, but getting to see the color change, in upstate Michigan is just amazing. And then you fast forward, the winter it transitions in great, but you go up north and you can go up, then walk across a lake as frozen solid. I do it with my kids every year for stuff, where we try to get to. And then you get the spring and everything coming back to life and seeing all the greenery, and then you get the summer. I kind of love that aspect, because with Michigan, you got Upper and Lower Peninsula, and there's just so much to do. Plus I'm also, like to go shooting and military. Michigan's been a fairly
right
unfriendly state, so.
I got a couple other buddies that are from Michigan. One named Sean Ellis. Shout out Sean Ellis. He always loves going back and seeing the canopy of trees change during autumn. And I remember my family in Milford, Michigan. They would send me pictures. Back in the '80s, we'd get pictures over the Christmas or something of their autumn, and you'd see all those beautiful trees and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. We don't got stuff like that down here in Texas anymore. So, and I didn't have it when I was living in Florida either. So.
Yeah, we also don't get tornadoes like everybody else does. We still get some, but not like that.
Yeah, but y'all get that freaking snow like crazy. All right, Eric. Here's a big one. I can tell you the last time I cried is when you showed me that damn bronze star. We'll talk about that later. When was the last time you cried, sir?
Like, cried or teared up?
No, it can be just cried from a movie, cried because you hurt your pinky toe. Just anytime you cried. Not teared up doesn't really count. It's got to be a cry.
Gotta be a cry. I can't remember exact specific one. I can give you some very relevant one, because I can't remember the last time, but I'll give you one that'll probably pull at your heartstrings. Definitely it wasn't the last time I cried, but it still sticks with me. And so everybody's got, more used to seeing the black ones, but this is, Steel Hearts. So it's kind of founded by a West Point grad, and they started out doing service academy folks. The one I wear every day was a roommate from mine at the academy. His name was Dan Hyde. Dan was basically our Captain America. I know West Point right now with the football team, both got nicknames, but everybody, growing up, want to be like Mike. For those that remember the phrase from back in the day. Well, for us in my class, everybody wanted to be like Dan. He was. I told my wife this. Dan Hyde was the best roommate I've ever had, to include my wife. And yeah, he just being around him. You just felt like a better person, and you felt. And he was so humble too. It's not even funny. Just so off-spoken, but so determined, and just all about like every good quality you could come up with was just in Dan Hyde. And unfortunately, Dan didn't make it back from his first deployment. But getting to the point of the crying, I'll say survivor's remorse hit me hard randomly. Christmas time, my daughter was still sleeping in, pack and play stuff. So I don't remember if it was her first Christmas. She was born in November, so I don't remember if it was that Christmas or if it was the following year. But I got really bad insomnia, and that night I was at my mother's house, sleeping in my old bedroom, my wife upstairs, and my daughter's sleeping downstairs. And all of a sudden I started thinking about Dan. Couldn't stop. And thinking about all the stuff that he didn't get to do. And, thinking about my daughter and him, and I made my way down to watch her sleep. And basically at one point, I think Hillary came down and found me down there. Maybe not, I can't remember exactly, but yeah, it was just waterworks. Just again, thinking about Dan and the fact that, you'd never have kids. You'd never know what it was like. Right. So that was probably one of the most, again, to this day, I'm surprised I've gotten better about it. A couple years ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to talk about this, but yeah.
Well, as Scott Blake would say, he normally is he is DJ Royalty, so he does the DJ Royalty hot seat every week, but he's got a much more I forget how Nick Palmachado said his name was. It's used some word maleficent, or I can't remember, but he's got a beautiful voice, so he would normally say this. It's important to say Dan Hyde's name, because as long as we keep saying their name and telling the stories, kind of like what we do on the podcast, that's what we say this for, because we want to keep saying Dan's name and keep talking about all the good things that made him, a wonderful roommate. That's saying something, because I know some of the people you've consorted with over your career. There's a lot of cool people. So to say he's your best roommate over Dr. Hillary, that's saying something. So I do appreciate you sharing that.
I remember one time I got so sick I ended up with vertigo, and at the academy you can't lock your doors before lights out, taps type stuff. And I had a huge movie collection even then. People kept coming in wanting to borrow stuff, and I was just sick as a dog. And he printed out a little sign or something, taped on the door, closed and locked it. Like, consequences be damned. But
we had like 3,000 movies between us. You had 6 terabytes worth of stuff. I remember not being short of movies when we were roommates together.
Yeah, I'm pushing like 6,000 titles these days.
Oh my good Lord.
Probably
all right.
Close to 50 terabytes of raw storage. For the Nick you just mentioned, was it happened to be this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just ran into him at Army Navy.
Oh yeah. I figured I was gonna ask him if he knew you on the show, but I figured that'd be corny as hell. But
well, I don't know him, but yeah, I mean, I have no idea.
Yeah, he was on the show a couple weeks ago. It's a real interesting story. Like you know how I am. So when he started talking about the Save Our Allies and then the irreverent comedy that he does, like I just mind melded with that dude too. So
yeah, and then also mandatory fun day.
Oh yeah, that guy's hilarious. He's still active duty.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
cool
him and Nick were both at the same party.
We got to get him on the podcast sometime soon. All right, the question everybody wants to know. I really have no idea which way you're going to go on this, because I don't remember ever talking about this subject with you. I do remember talking about the Detroit Red Wings and hockey and you playing football and stuff like that. But I'm going to ask you, in your opinion, who is the greatest entertainer of all time, Prince or Michael Jackson?
Oh, that is tough. I'd almost have to toss a coin up on this one, because you're probably going to ask me why, and I'm not going to be able to give an answer.
Now you can, on this question, you can just to be able to get an answer, a straight answer, that's almost enough. And then, I'll take it from there, but you just tell me the straight answer.
I'm not the biggest fan of all of his music, but I probably have to say Prince.
So Prince?
I think I'll have to say Prince.
Oh, okay.
That's a tough call.
That's cool. Prince is all right, I'm a fan, but yeah, here we go.
Just heard stories about his concerts and other stuff, and it's just like, that's a tough call.
Yeah. Well, I think you answered pretty much correctly. I'm of the Prince fan. When Scott does it, he's definitely pulling for people to say Michael Jackson. So he's a Michael Jackson fan. So, all right, last question. What can we do better to make this podcast even better? What do you think?
Let's see. Oh, maybe have everybody here.
Oh, nice. Sorry about that one. Sorry.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you guys have been great. It's I think if nothing else, maybe feel free to interject on those that are long-winded like me. I don't think you expected this to go almost 2 hours. But yeah,
well,
in the beginning, you and I
actually
going.
That's what I was going to say. I expected it to go much, much longer if it was just you and I, because we could have got off on some tangents. At least we had Matt here to kind of rein us in a little bit. But I do want to say very much how much I appreciate it. And then that Bronze Star story is, always a cool thing that I remember, because, I mean, I deployed a lot and I knew a lot, but I learned so much from you on just different ways to do things, and then the potential that you have to basically take over every section and have a real hold on what's going on in every section. Like that's just what we did. We got along. I appreciated your counsel. I appreciated your planning. I appreciate it. You know, we hung out of work, so you're a great dude. You've come in and visit me multiple times, and so like we're best. You know, we're great friends. You know, separated by a lot of miles, but you're one of those people that, like Scott, Matt, and Al, if I needed someone to be there, I know that you would be there. So I appreciate you very much for coming on.
In a heartbeat, brother.
Yeah.
I remember when Sarah told me about the award or whatever you were getting.
Oh yeah.
You know, she was
VFW award. Yeah.
Yeah. She was looking just for, you know, video, you know, type stuff to, you know, commemorate you and different stuff and things like that. Now, you know, you mentioned Terry and you know, Ramona, you know, they, you know, gave stuff as well, but, you know, her and I, you know, chatting, and I know Sarah's listening in, within, gosh, Sarah, what was it, like 30 minutes or less? You confirming the date, I'd bought plane tickets. So she helped me surprise the crap out of you, which was fantastic.
Yeah, I was very surprised. Yeah. Is that when they gave me my bronze boots?
Yeah.
Yeah, they gave me some bronze boots, and I turned around to get them, and it's him that they handed them to me. So it was pretty cool.
Oh, you were crying.
Oh, I did, man.
Oh yeah, he was bawling.
I'm a crier. I can whoop some ass, but I can cry too. But like this guy right here, he's like a brother to me, like for real.
Yeah.
There was you know, I was in a lot of pain. I was always in a lot of pain in a lot of the end of my deployments, but like that was literally my last deployment in Afghanistan, and I'd been there for the third time. And you know, I remember, since I knew where everything was, they would ask us to fly down to here and pick up this stuff and fly. So we were flying everywhere, it seemed like, and I just remember my knees were in such bad shape, and I think I got kidney stones.
You did
that deployment, and I was like, that's the interesting part I thought he was talking about. Is like I would throw up and then be out for 5 hours. I would wake up, throw up, and be out for 5 hours until the damn stones went away.
Oh, I thought about telling that story, but yeah, that was one of those things.
We had some bonding experiences.
Yeah, where you were mainlining, you know, Cokes and Diet Cokes.
Yeah,
you know,
crazy.
And so, you know, Doc's like, well, you might want to cut back because that's adding to it.
Plus,
we had guys down in, you know, you mentioned Helmand Province for the big, you know, was it, you know, HK3, whatever push. I mean, there was, we had guys down there. I remember having to go down there and basically kick Battalion S6 in the ass. Because he wasn't supporting our guys. Thankfully, his brigade S6, you know, was good, but you know, it was one of those things like, oh hell no, you know, we basically cut off, you know, one of our companies to send down to you guys, you know, treat them like shit. No, fuck no. Sorry, probably shouldn't swear, but that one got on my skin.
Oh, you've not watched much of the podcast.
Yeah, you haven't seen very much.
Okay, well, I'm trying to.
Of course, has been said.
But
he's a gentleman, though. He's an officer and a gentleman.
Yeah, bullshit. Yeah, I remember. Do you remember how you used to? Oh, because you know, other stories.
So Sarah said earlier she wanted to hear some more stories. So go ahead.
Yeah, so not even the deployment story thing. It was so. Yeah, Matt. One of the things that would always come up, because like I said, my dad was enlisted. I had a fair amount of other enlisted, but you know, some officers in the extended family, and you know, every now and then people get, you know, told by some like, oh, you know, were you enlisted before type stuff, and different folks. But I could, you know, chew some ass with the best of them. And when I would start going down that lane, Sergeant Cobb would come over to me and goes, Sergeant Mancik, I need you to leave and go find, whether depending on the time, it was either Lieutenant or then Captain Mancik. It's like, I need you to go leave and find Captain Mancik and tell him I need to see him, you know, as soon as, you know, can. It was his way of basically saying, get in your lane. It's my job to, you know, chew ass and put a boot up, you know.
Stop taking away everything I live for daily.
Oh,
you can't do it all.
Well, and then at the same time, you know, I was like, you know, sorry about you want me to say. He's like, I don't know, because in some parts it gave him ammunition. It's like, hey, you managed to piss off the sir. The SIGO is pissed.
Like, yeah. We're gonna do good cop and bad cop. Ready? And then when you're like, I thought you were saying bad cop, bad cop. No.
Yeah. No, it was bad cop and worse cop. Like, which one are we doing? Yeah, because I remember one of the times we were at the new battalion headquarters. So it must have been after the deployment. I don't remember what the hell it was, but they pissed me off something fierce, both of us, because they just like being lazy, whatever. And I started just going off. And so you did, you know, that thing, you know, told me to go outside. And if you remember, I can't remember his name, but he was a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. You know, actual major. Yeah, I'm not a huge.
No, I don't remember Dallas Cowboys. The only Dallas Cowboy fan that I even acknowledge exists because I love him so much is a gentleman named Robert Dawson. But other Cowboys fans, they don't exist to
Yeah.
me.
Well, anyway, but this guy, so he was a retired sergeant major, and I'm just outside, blowing off some steam type stuff. He was in the area, and the guys came outside, and like we're heading towards their vehicles or some shit like that. And in my head, I'm like, "What are you doing? That is not what you're supposed to be doing." And I screamed over. I'm like, "F6!" And they all literally stopped dead in their tracks, like mid motion, were afraid to move. And they went to the position of attention, and we're talking like a football field or more away, and yelling back like what they're doing, and it was like, "Fine, carry on, hurry up!" And so they started running to their cars. Sergeant Major just looked at me and goes, "Damn, sir, really listed before?" I was like, "No, Sergeant Major, but I was raised by." He's like, I can tell it shows."
That's right.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, we had some definitely some good and some interesting times. I remember too. You had they talk about sharing a brain. Colonel call up, having an issue, whatever, with the computer. I'm on the phone with him. It's not on speakerphone. I just pick up. It's like, "Hey, sir, yep, okay, no, be right down." And before I'm even off the phone, immediately, Ty's looked at me. I looked at him. Both little kind of just whole conversation and just a nod. And he gets up and he starts walking to the colonel's office. And as I'm hanging up the phone with the colonel, before he's hung it up on his side, I can hear him say, "Hey, Sergeant Cobb, what's up?" And it click. And apparently, like, he was there to fix the issue, and the colonel was just flabbergasted. It's like, wait, I was just talking to the signal. Like, how do you know what the part? He's like, "No, sir, I got it."
I'm telling you, the brand of ADHD that I have, and I'm pretty intelligent dude, but like I have a very ADHD type mind. But whatever we had going on, being a 25 uniform in the Army, that was absolutely the best thing that we could have absolutely been, because of the things that we got to touch. And I attribute that to the way I grew up in the military, and being a 25 uniform, being able to be around all the trainings that the infantry did, that the combat engineers did, that the military police did, and then beyond all those deployments, that enabled us to be able to just get whatever we wanted to. And then, so I passed my knowledge to you, you passed your knowledge to me of the engineers and how that went. And man, I remember our deployment being very successful. I remember us being basically the trouble, like they called us the Kings of the North or something. I don't know what they called us, but we were the help desk for every fucking thing signal. And I'd never really had that happen in my career.
I remember the J6 calling me, the J6 office calling, because they were pissed because those Iridium sat phones we brought that weren't on any contract. Yeah, 17 of them
all up in the mesh.
On an unlimited plan that was paid for by CENTCOM.
And then what about our $100,000 BlackBerry, international BlackBerry? Like, my BlackBerry became the hub for the FRG to call. So I'd just be walking in a combat zone on a patrol, and my global cell phone would ring. It'd be like, "Hey, this is so and so. I need to have a VTC with my husband," or "We need to set this up." It'd be the fucking FRG calling me.
Oh, it was nuts. Yeah, I remember them calling
like, "Don't shoot! I gotta answer the phone. Hold on."
Yeah, the J6 apparently was pissed because they realized I got all those things, added onto contracts. They're like, "Don't try another one. We'll let you keep the ones you've got, but don't do another one." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to hand those out to my guys and tell them to use them as often as they possibly can to call home. And oh, by the way, here's the direct to a cell phone dialing instructions. Knock yourselves out.
There you go.
Our little battalion had more on the mesh than a lot of brigades had. Like, we just, that's what I'm saying. Like, White Sands gave us a lot of oomph to be able to get some stuff.
Yeah, because we had the battalion CPN node. We had 9, 10 plus those snap terminals. I think we got, for an MWR thing, we got like one of the little, I don't remember what the thing was called, but basically, a smaller version of that dropped in for different places. Because we had guys everywhere. We had guys spread out across RC North. We had elements in RC East. We had guys in RC South. Like, it was, automatic lights.
He's got that smart house. Is that Sigo, man? Like, hey, Alexa, turn the lights back on.
But we guys everywhere. So it was like, we needed to talk. Like, we were going to be able to do whatever we had. I had the Iridium sat phones. I had Thorias sat phones. We had the local stuff that
I had that little briefcase that I carried around whenever I visited people that had the I forget what it's called. It was all I had to do was put it up. It was a direct shot. It wasn't a snap. It wasn't a bullet.
I know what you're talking. I can't remember
It was
the
a
name.
black box. People thought I was a fucking CIA when I had that thing, man. I pulled out. No, I got you. What email you need to send? You know.
Hey,
anyway,
like I said, ownership's 9/10 of the law.
Hey,
all right, it's all government property being used for government purposes.
Yeah, that was the rock people.
Well, Matt, you'll appreciate.
We can nerd them out all day. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can, but you'll appreciate this one. So, but I'm going to ask you a question, Matt.
Okay.
Matt, what's the higher rank, a captain or a lieutenant?
It depends on what branch of service you're in, because they're even. It's just going to go off years of service at that point, or maybe what college you went to.
In any service, because the Navy and the Army both have captains. They both have lieutenants.
Yeah, that's why I just said it depends on what service you're in and what academy you went to.
So a Navy captain outranks Navy lieutenant, and Army captain outranks an Army lieutenant. So like I said, I got a Navy brother. And with that logic, I said, hey, no, by just straight logic, a captain outranks a lieutenant. My brother and I both happen to be in the military, active duty at the same time. We both happen to be in Afghanistan at the same time. And I told him, I was like, hey, me captain outranks you lieutenant. Not my problem that, you joined the Navy. But even better was the fact that, we worked hours. Well, he was with a logistics unit that was at Kandahar. I would just decide, you know what? I want to see what's going on with my big brother at ODARC 30. And I would call down there and I would just say, this is Captain Mancik. Get that piece of shit, Lieutenant Mancik, on the phone now.
The Navy guys don't know any different, dude.
Nope.
That is so horrible.
Oh, my God. He gets so pissed because I did it a bunch of times.
That's so great. Well, they're not going to question you. You know what I mean?
Even if they tried to, because he would tell them, like, if you get another call from a captain, he is not a Navy captain. He's an 03 in the Army.
They're like, whatever. You can say what you want.
I don't know if anybody knows this story, but didn't you fly?
Yeah. Oh, that's where I was going next. Yeah. So
okay, I'm sorry.
My brother was trying to say how he was going to make it up and see me, whatever, and he couldn't make it happen. Again, remember the story about the tickets for the Army-Navy game. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, we had guys down south. And so when I went down to check on them, I took a slight detour for about 48 hours and got myself over to Camp Leatherneck, where he was actually at. And then he introduced me to his guys, and he was like, all right, shitheads, this is Captain Mancik. And I'm standing there with the biggest shit-eating grin on my face the whole time.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then when you called the next time, they're like, yep, we'll go
fuck
back
him.
I didn't stop. But the one benefit, though, is their detachment was so small that for doing the morale calls back home, they didn't have a time limit. You just call back to their, home stations,
the DSN line.
Yeah. And they would forward you on a, whatever you want and talk for however long you wanted. So I used that all the time. So I didn't give that number out to everybody because they didn't want to get into trouble. But at the same time, that was awesome. But
I deployed so many times, man. I could call anywhere in the United States and get a VTC anytime I wanted to. I could get a phone line to anywhere. Like,
yeah, well,
you memorizing those numbers.
Oh no, I still kept some of those in my pocket. Was it USAROC or whatever?
You say SUROC, yeah.
Yeah, you say SUROC. Oh yeah, same thing. I used that for a while for stuff. I call a direct line and I was like, yeah, we're like, okay, cool, we got you.
So Matt, to say the least, he and I spoke the same language when it came to our styles of ADHD, and we actually had a very large amount of things that we were involved in. It was probably my most successful, because of the amount of people we had, because of what they expected of us, and because of a lot of his logistics ability, we were able to do some things with some fiber there that was just unfounded. And I know we don't talk nerdy on the show that much, but I do have a very fucking nerdy side.
I'm gonna let you both know right now. I'm gonna be 100% straight out honest. I don't understand half the shit you guys said. I just don't. I'm hearing all the stuff you're saying about coming in and wrapping this around and doing this thing. So I just sat there like, all right, cool. Oh, we're talking about transition. I know a little bit about this.
You got in on the conversation there.
Welcome to being basically in the 99% of the people that would be around us that also even knew the stuff we were talking about. We'd have like 3 or 4 conversations.
If I was near there and people were like looking around, be like, does your shit work? That's all you need to know, dude. Just Keep going.
Oh man,
Shit works.
we
It
would
works.
like, we would be having my desk would be like facing the door, and his desk was like there, and he could see the flank of the door when they walked in. So anyway, so people would come in and they would start talking to me, and he would still be asking me questions. I would still be answering them, and then I would answer their question. And then they would talk amongst themselves and figure something out. And then he would answer. And the retort would be from him, and they're like, "What the fuck is going on here?" And then by the end of it, they've got their entire problem fixed, and I think they're more confused now that their problem's fixed because what the fuck just happened? And it was like that a lot for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. I remember a couple of times somebody like new would come in for the group, something like that. And somebody asks a question and we start kind of hashing out and figuring out on the fly. And then at least once, I don't remember who it was, but somebody like went to start asking a question and they're like, no, just stop. They'll come back and then they'll explain it for us. And because we would just be like, well, what about that? Like, no, but that one too. Yeah, but okay, but what about this? And so we would just be bouncing stuff back and forth. And finally we'd come to a conclusion and like, okay, cool, here's what you need to do. And they're just like, what?
I'd have just walked in the door and been like, this is down. Just let me know when it's good. Not a walk. I'd have figured it out later on to been like, hey, they need help over there. Okay, cool. I'll see you guys later. And then come back, just look in the door. And if there's still not conversating going on, be like, oh, they're still trying to go back. Yeah, we're still working on the problem. But then the moment I walk by the door and everything's normal, oh, yeah, they got to fix it. It's good. You should try it now.
That's where I'd be. You've already caught on to what would probably work best for most people.
Yeah.
Just
there.
Feed the beast. Let us figure it out. We'll make it happen, and we'll come back.
That's that Navy senior chief brain.
Yeah,
right there.
Well, I'm not going to work any harder than I have to. Resident experts in here. Okay, yeah. Hey, we need that. All right, good. Okay, I'll be back later. And then I would just walk up and down the hall, and then you'd see me like 2 days later. Man, you never came back. Oh, I already knew you fixed it. You'd be like, oh, okay. But I figured out how I know you fixed it. And if it would have taken a long time, I'd have walked in and be like, hey, what do you really want me to tell them? Then you guys could have been like, all right, cool. Hey, they're working on it. This is where we're at. I'm just asking for one-word answers here. I don't need the book. Just tell me what to tell somebody else.
Appreciate it too. Even just like, don't work harder than you have to. Ty, after you left with the new crew that we had in for more on the S3 side and stuff, we're going back through doing like same training exercises, same whatever. And we had like all the old, training, the con ops, everything else. And then they finally realized, like, oh wait, yeah, the SIGO actually knows, how to combat engineer and other stuff. And we get in these planning meetings, and they get 5 minutes in. And I'm just sitting there, smart ass look on my face, just waiting for somebody to finally go, oh wait, you've been here a while. You might have an idea of if we've done this before, and how do we need to do it? I'd be like, yeah, go to this folder, this file, whatever, pull it up. There you go. Like, go away.
Knowledge management. Like that's the thing is we managed everyone's knowledge.
All right, so
that's the way
let's go here.
Take over.
You're still here. You're not going anywhere because we got 3 people here, and we'll even let you pick the games. One's going on right now. But we should go into future guests, what the games are being picked, and I don't know. I'm gonna go watch my neighbors blow their hands off with fireworks. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Future guests. So next week we got Dr. Mitch Mackey, President and CEO, Go for Broke National Education Center. He's going to talk about the American veterans with Japanese ancestry. So I've actually spoke to this gentleman one time before. This should be a really fun show.
Nice.
This politics, that's something Al wants to talk about. Sports. All right.
There we are.
I'll just go ahead and I'll apologize. So in our sports, we were doing okay after week 1, round 1 of the playoffs, but in week 2, we did lose. In week 2, we did lose 298 to 272. So we're now in the 3rd place game, round 2, week 1 of 2 in the thing, and we're up right now 134 to 128. So it's still, we're just going for 3rd place, so pretty much fuck that. If I'm not first, I'm last.
So regular season, just so y'all know, I did come back from the dead, and Ty only caught me in the last week because I didn't pick like I should have. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I did. I wanted to make sure that everybody remembers that for the regular season, I was deep in the dumpster last year, Eric. I mean, I was so far in the dumpster. Like, even if you looked up, you'd have been like, I know I'm starting at the bottom. I'm just going to stay here. There's no way I'm getting out. Nice. All right. And so
Lost your
Playoffs.
audio again, Ty. There we go.
Did it come back now?
Yep.
All right, so the first weeks of the college football playoffs in Clemson and Texas. Texas won. Ohio State. Let's see who else. Penn State won, and then Notre Dame. So what we were picking from that week, Al Hero went 3-1. Scott Blake was 4-0. Matt Johnson was 2-2, and as you can see, I was 0-4-4. So
Disappointed, Ty.
yeah, I was too. I don't know if I just inadvertently decided to pick every game wrong and I should have picked the other one or what the fuck I was thinking, but it worked the exact opposite of the way I wanted it to. All right, so in the games that we did pick, just our bowl team games, Texas A&M lost to USC 31-35 in the Las Vegas Bowl. The Buffaloes lost to the BYU Cougars. Army beat Louisiana Tech, and Navy beat Oklahoma. So for that week, I was 3-1. Scott Blake was 1-3. Matt Johnson was 3-1, and Al Hero was 2-2. So for the college football playoff edition of the College Pick'em, which I'm not the champion of, now I'm in the basement at 3-5, and everybody else is 5-3. But it is early.
Hear you.
Say it again.
Yeah. We can't hear Matt.
How about now? I know you might have to log out and log back in.
Ty, what'd you do?
I don't know. It's must be StreamYard with, I don't know. We never have problems until you come on as the Siggo. Like we never have these kind of problems.
I honestly can believe that.
Yeah, we really don't. Yeah, just log out and log back in, Matt. That should make it work.
Technology and I have always had this love-hate relationship.
Matt's already picked the games anyway, so I wonder if it was the music maybe that I was playing.
Yeah, that's what it messed that up when you turned the music on for your audio.
Is my audio good now?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we had the second round, so that's what we've picked this week. I've got all the picks in. So, what do you think is going to happen with the Texas Arizona State? I'm not looking at any of the games now, so I don't know any of the current scores. I was waiting to watch it after the podcast.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not sure either. So I think I'm going to go with Arizona State.
Okay.
Then, honestly, I think Oregon's going to beat up on Ohio State.
Okay. I as well picked Oregon.
I'm hoping for Penn State because actually my brother-in-law is a deputy athletic director out there, so that'd be cool. They keep going. And then just because I live close to it and they did beat Army this year, I'm hoping it's Notre Dame over Georgia. But Georgia's a big school, so I don't know.
Okay, well, I picked Georgia.
Number 2 against number 7, it's going to be in their favor.
Well, man, I tell you what, I don't know if Matt's coming back, but this has been a very sentimental, episode for me. My eye is actually red. I don't know exactly why, but I really enjoyed you coming on. I enjoyed hearing some of the things, some stories I hadn't heard of. But as always, it's great to hear from you. I love your family. I always wish you well. I mean, we always talk throughout the year. But thanks very much for coming on, man. You're actually the first person from Second Engineer. I've had some people from other units, but you're the first person from Second Engineer that I've got to come on. So appreciate you coming on.
Glad to be here. Like I said, I know we talked about it and then we finally circled back and picked a date. But like I said, I don't know why, but because I'm the one that picked tonight, so I know I'm part of the reason why all the guys weren't on tonight with other plans. But no, happy to be here.
Yeah, I didn't when you said what day it was. As soon as you said what day it was, I just put, yep, that's the one I want to do it because it didn't matter because I wanted to have you on the show and could be able to talk to you in front of everybody and for you to meet my buddies. So appreciate you, and we'll talk soon, brother.
All right, man. Love you.
All right, love you. Talk to you soon. Well, there it is. If Matt's not coming back, we can go ahead and jump out of here. But This is the Triple Threat Vet Podcast. I am Ty. And I don't really have anything more to say other than happy, 2004. I hope it was great. A couple hours we'll be celebrating and jumping into 2005. So let's make this 2005 be a great year. We're here live every Tuesday. Like and subscribe to our channels. We're at Triple Threat Vet across all social media. So every Tuesday, 7 p.m. live right here on all of our social media. Look forward to seeing you. Talk to you soon.